Chapter 1631. You are Elder Ku's son of Tianlang Mountain, right? The first elder smiled calmly. That's right. Ku's son straightened his back and said, What you said is quite interesting. The disappearance of 3 sect masters in the tomb of the immortal emperor is indeed a big deal, but it's really funny that they would blame Jiangqun. The first elder looked at him and said, Grand Elder Su, we've investigated this matter. Jiangqun was the only one among the 3 lords who had a conflict with him. Is there anyone else besides him involved in this matter? Ku's son sneered coldly. May I ask, what is Jiangqun's cultivation? The first elder nodded and did not continue to argue with him. It is said that he has reached the 2nd level of the celestial immortal realm. Ku's son crossed his arms. Even though Tianlang Mountain was far inferior to Qianhe's sect, they had the support of 3 sects, so they did not take Su Qian seriously. Well said, Jiangqun is indeed at the 2nd level of the celestial immortal realm. Yes. With his strength, do you think that he can get rid of the 3 sect masters silently? These 3 are true immortal kings. Sect Master Ku's son, you must not let your hatred get to your head. The great elder sneered coldly. Jiangqun is weak, but he has many powerful masters around him. Grand Elder Su, don't waste your breath on us. Just give Jiangqun to us. We're all from the sects and schools of the East. It's not good for us to make a scene. As long as we can see Jiangqun today and take him away, I'll definitely come to apologize to him in person for what happened today. Ku's son put on an act and cupped his hands at Su Qian. Jiangqun is indeed here, the first elder said. After he finished speaking, Jiangqun walked out of the crowd. In an instant, Ku's son and the others all stared at him. They could not wait to go up and cut Jiangqun into pieces. Thank you for your understanding, First Elder Su. Goodbye. Ku's son's eyes were scarlet red. After he cupped his hands towards Jiangqun once more, he clenched his fist forcefully and erupted with the aura of a celestial monarch. He stretched out his withered hand that was like an eagle's claw and charged fiercely towards Jiangqun. The moment he moved, Su Qian's originally gentle expression instantly sank. With a wave of his hand, a strong wind attacked, stopping Ku Falcon's figure and blowing him back more than 10 steps. He only managed to stabilize himself with the support of the Tianlang Mountain disciples. Great Elder Su, why are you doing this? Ku's son asked with an ugly expression. Ku's son, I think you should have heard of the things that happened in the immortal emperor's tomb. In order to protect Jiangqun, this old man was willing to fight with immortal King Xianjun. Do you think I will hand him over to you today? Great Elder asked with narrowed eyes. Great Elder Su, we won't kill him. We just want to bring him back to Tianlang Mountain and ask him how our 3 sect leaders went missing. Ku's son didn't dare to fight Su Qian head-on. If you have anything to say, ask clearly here. If you don't have anything to say, go back to where you came from. Don't do it in front of our Qianhe sect. Ku's son, I have given you face since we are both from the eastern region. I hope you can grasp this opportunity and don't continue to go out of line. Otherwise, I don't mind letting the eastern region have one less immortal master. Great Elder's tone was flat, but the threat in it was self-evident. Ku's son's eyes were gloomy. He knew that if he went back today, not only would he not be able to find out why the sect leaders went missing, but the reputation of Tianlang Mountain would also plummet. He was afraid that he would no longer be able to raise his head in the eastern region. However, if he insisted on taking Jiangqun with him, he wouldn't be a match for Su Qian. Even the hundreds of disciples from the 3 sects and schools would be killed here, and the Qianhe sect would only suffer a small loss. After thinking about it, Ku's son thought of a good idea. I heard that when Jiangqun entered the immortal emperor's tomb, his cultivation was only at the 3rd level of true immortal realm. In just a month, he actually rose to the 2nd level of celestial immortal realm. I think he must have had some fortuitous encounters. Ku's son suddenly laughed and asked, This has nothing to do with you. Great Elder said faintly. How about this, Great Elder Su, let Jiangqun come out and fight with the elders of our Tianlang Mountain. If he can defeat our elders, then today's matter will be over, and I will not come here in the future. But if he can't win, then he has to go back with us and explain everything clearly. Ku Sun stared at Jiang Chen in the crowd and said word by word. Why? Okay, I agree. Before Great Elder finished speaking, Jiang Chen's voice sounded. Looking sideways at Jiang Chen, Great Elder saw that Jiang Chen's face was normal and his eyes were firm, so Great Elder did not say anything more. You have backbone. Ku Shan, come out and fight with this Jiang Chen. Let's see what kind of fortuitous encounter he had in the Immortal Emperor's tomb. Seeing that Jiang Chen agreed, Ku Sun suddenly laughed. But little friend Jiang Chen, fists and feet have no eyes. If you get hurt, don't blame us. I'll return the same words to you. Under everyone's gaze, Jiang Chen walked out from the crowd. But when Ku Shan came out, the people of Qian He sect were a little angry. This Ku Shan. He was a third-level Immortal Venerable. He was 2 levels higher than Jiang Chen. Moreover, he was not bound by the 1,000-year pact and the Pact of 2 Realms. Ku Sunday. After sensing the strength of this person, Great Elder's aura became completely gloomy. Little friend Jiang Chen, you agreed to it yourself just now. In front of the 3 great sects in Qian He sect, you're not thinking of going back on your words, are you? Ku Sun sneered. Crossing 2 levels was enough to suppress Jiang Chen in a very short time. At that time, even Su Qian would have nothing to say. I've always kept my word. Naturally, I won't go back on my words. It's just that you've mentioned your conditions, but I haven't said mine. Jiang Chen glanced at Ku Shan and said, Just say it. Ku Sun said casually. If I win, not only will you leave here, but you'll also have to kneel down and kowtow to me and Great Elder Su Qian to apologize for rashly breaking into the sect today. Under everyone's gaze, Jiang Chen's voice slowly sounded. As soon as this sentence came out, it immediately caused an uproar. Who was Ku Sun? He was a dignified elder of Tianlang Mountain and a real immortal monarch. This kind of strength could be considered a powerhouse in the entire immortal world. Now that he had to kneel down and kowtow, it was simply more heartbreaking than killing him. Tisk, so ruthless. Hua Fu clicked her tongue and sighed, looking at Jiang Chen with some fluctuations in her eyes. That's an immortal monarch. I don't know if Master is her opponent. Bai Fingyu clenched her clothes tightly, worried about Jiang Chen. Little girl, don't worry. With us here, we will definitely not let them take Jiang Chen away. Seeing Bai Fingyu's worried look, Hua Fu couldn't help but cover her mouth and chuckle. Chapter 1632. Brat, you'd better weigh your own strength before you speak. Ku Sun's face turned pale. Jiang Chen's words were like a slap to his face. It was a great humiliation for a dignified immortal monarch to be ridiculed by a young second-layer heaven immortal. How do we compete? Jiang Chen ignored him and walked straight to the entrance. He looked at Ku Shan, who was standing in front of him, and asked faintly. There are no rules. If one party begs for mercy or dies in battle, the winner will be decided. Do you dare to accept the challenge? Ku Shan stared at Jiang Chen. When Jiang Chen insulted Ku Sun, he was already prepared to kill him. As long as the rules were explained in advance, even if he killed Jiang Chen in the competition, Su Qian wouldn't do it in front of the disciples of the 4 sections. Of course. Jiang Chen smiled faintly. After Jiang Chen said that, the 4 sects all retreated hundreds of steps, leaving the middle area as the venue for the battle between Jiang Chen and Ku Shan. However, they didn't think that there would be much suspense in this battle. The gap between an immortal venerable and a heaven immortal was like a natural chasm. Jiang Chen would be killed in the first moment of the battle. Can I? The great elder asked in a low voice as they retreated. And no problem. Jiang Chen nodded. With his current strength and the immortal techniques he had mastered, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage even though he might not win against a 3rd-layer immortal venerable. By the way, wear the clothes I gave you. This way, you will be able to absorb a large part of Ku Shan's attack. When the time comes, I will ask them to stop. As long as you don't lose, you have already won to a certain extent. Even though Jiang Chen was so sure, the great elder was still worried. Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, not knowing how to reply. He had already given the clothes to Nian Chang'e. Well, the clothes are in the guest room. Isn't it too late to go back and get them now? Of course, Jiangchen couldn't say the truth, so he had a bright idea and pretended to be embarrassed. Don't worry, I'll go get it for you. Who would have thought that the great elder didn't care about this at all? What he wanted was Jiangchen's safety. Wait for the great elder. I think we can defeat him even without that robe. Jiangchen put his hand on the great elder's arm and said, It just so happens that I was in seclusion in the immortal emperor's tomb. My strength has increased and I have also obtained an immortal art. I can use this opportunity to test it out. Besides, if he dares to hurt me, those immortal kings by my side won't let him off. All right, since you've decided, then take care of yourself. The first elder stopped and instructed in a low voice. Yes, I know. Jiangchen nodded and stepped forward, standing in front of Kushan. All of a sudden, all of the sect's disciples shut their mouths and stared at the open area. They had never seen a fight between a second-tier celestial immortal and a third-tier immortal venerable. They also wanted to see why Jiangchen was so confident that he had the nerve to challenge a practitioner 2 tiers higher than him. He even said that if Kushan was defeated, Kusan would kneel down and kowtow to him and Su Qian to apologize. When Jiangchen stepped forward, Bai Xiaoyun, who was relaxed a moment ago, instantly tensed up. Immortal chi slowly flowed in her meridians, ready to attack at any time. He didn't care about the competition or the sects in the eastern region. What he wanted was to protect Jiangchen from any threat to his life. A third-layer heaven immortal. Do you really think that you can look down on everyone just because you got some benefits in the immortal emperor's tomb? To tell you the truth, with your strength, I can kill you as easily as killing an ant. Kushan stretched his muscles and bones. When his right hand dropped to his side, a huge mountain-splitting axe appeared in his hand. The axe directly smashed the ground, smashing the stone slabs of the Thousand Harmony sect. The loud sound made many people tremble. Maybe. Jiangchen raised his hand and replied faintly. As soon as his voice fell, a bolt of lightning struck down and hit him directly. After the light dissipated, a blue long sword that was flashing like lightning appeared in his hand. If one looked closely, there was a faint flame burning in the lightning. This was some of the content that Jiangchen comprehended after reading the fusion method. Your momentum is not bad, but it's a pity that your strength is too weak. Such a shocking scene naturally made Kushan a little stunned. However, when he came to his senses and realized that Jiangchen was only a second-layer heaven immortal, he waved the mountain-splitting axe in his hand and rose into the air. Then, he slashed down fiercely at Jiangchen's head. He believed that in the face of absolute strength, no fancy moves would have any effect. Jiangchen was not stupid enough to take his attack head-on. When Kushan rose into the air, he immediately rushed to the side, holding the thunder sword tightly in his hand. As his figure kept moving, there was a faint sound of thunder explosion behind him. Dodge? After his attack missed, Kushan turned to look at Jiangchen with a disdainful smile. Why, I can't dodge. Jiangchen smiled faintly. Of course you can dodge, but let's see how long you can dodge. At this time, Kushan did not take Jiangchen seriously at all. Although the thunder was shocking enough, Jiangchen did not even have the courage to fight with him. How could he defeat him? After having this idea, Kushan became even more aggressive. He did not have any defensive moves at all. In his eyes, it was only a matter of time before he caught Jiangchen. As long as he caught Jiangchen, he would lose his life. As a result, a strange scene appeared on the field. Jiangchen kept dodging and did not have the slightest intention to fight. As Kushan was a strength-type cultivator, he could not catch Jiangchen for a while. The two of them kept chasing back and forth in the open space. What is this kid doing? Kusun frowned. Jiangchen's actions made him feel confused. Could it be that he's stalling for time? A middle-aged man about 50 years old in Tianlang Mountain said. What's the use of stalling for time? He is not Kushan's opponent at all. It is only a matter of time before he is defeated. Kusun shook his head. He felt that Jiangchen was very strange now. If he was really afraid, why would he agree at the beginning and even dare to say those outrageous words to him? On the other side, in Xianhe's sect, many elders, protectors, and even the deacons and ordinary disciples were talking about Jiangchen. Let's wait and see. This kid doesn't look like the kind of person who will do things that he is not sure of. Seeing that Bai Xiaoyun could not help but want to take action, the great elder put his hand on her arm and whispered to persuade her. The gap between him and a senior immortal is still too big. I am afraid that if I don't take action, he will not be able to hold on. Bai Xiaoyun took a deep breath. Chapter 1633. Don't worry, if there's a problem with this kid, I'll immediately go up and ensure his safety. The great elder's gaze was always on Jiangchen, but he was afraid that Bai Xiaoyun would suddenly make a move, so he advised. I'm the great elder of Qianhe's sect. Even if I make a move, they can't say anything. Bai Xiaoyun thought for a moment, and felt that the great elder's words were indeed reasonable, so she gradually relaxed. On the field, Jiangchen was still dodging everywhere. All of Ku Shan's attacks were completely avoided by him. The originally smooth tiles had already been cracked inch by the mountain-splitting axe. If someone suddenly broke in from the outside at this time, they would definitely think that Qianhe's sect had encountered a great disaster. Kid, stop if you have the ability! Ku Shan held the mountain-splitting axe, pointed at Jiangchen and shouted in a low voice. You said that? Jiangchen stopped in place, and suddenly revealed a bright smile. Just you wait, I'll kill you now! Ku Shan took a deep breath. He felt as if he had been ruthlessly played, especially in front of the 4 sect disciples, which made him very embarrassed. Jiangchen did not speak, and just stood there quietly. Ku Shan could no longer bear it. With his strength, he could easily kill Jiangchen, but now he had wasted so much time. He rushed toward Jiangchen at an extremely fast speed, and the mountain-splitting axe in his hand was aimed at Jiangchen's head. As long as he swung it heavily, he could directly break Jiangchen's head. At that time, even if a great heaven immortal came here, it would be impossible to save this person. But this was only what he thought. Ku Shan's speed was very fast, but when he was only 5 or 6 meters away from Jiangchen, the mountain-splitting axe in his hand was already raised high, and the corner of his mouth revealed a smile, but his whole body stopped. At the place where he stood, a vine as thick as a finger suddenly grew out from the cracks of the stone tiles, firmly binding his legs. Do you think that with just these things you can bind me? Ku Shan was a little surprised. Obviously he did not expect Jiangchen to have such a method. It was just a spell of a second-level heaven immortal. How could it cause too much of a hindrance to him? Ku Shan used all his strength to break free, and the vines that bound his legs were forcibly broken by him. After stretching his shoulders, Ku Shan once again rushed towards Jiangchen. However, every time he took a step forward, vines would grow out from the stone bricks again. This time, however, the vines did not simply bind his legs. They wrapped around his entire body, making it difficult for him to move. Even the mountain-splitting axe in his hand was wrapped up by the vines. No matter how hard he struggled, he was unable to break free from these vines. Let me go! Ku Shan's face was flushed red. He was taken down by a junior in front of so many people. This made him lose all face. He felt that he had lost all his face. Didn't you want to kill me? Jiangchen held the thunder long sword in his hand and slowly walked in front of him. The moment Ku Shan lost his ability to move, the onlookers finally understood that Jiangchen was not blindly dodging, but rather stalling for time to set up this kind of trap, waiting for Ku Shan to fall into it. Now that Ku Shan had lost his ability to move, in other words, he was already at the mercy of Jiangchen. You dare to hurt me? Seeing the long sword in Jiangchen's hand, Ku Shan secretly swallowed his saliva. Cold sweat flowed down his back. Then, he pretended to be calm and questioned. Why wouldn't I dare to hurt you? Jiangchen smiled calmly. He put the long sword against Ku Shan's neck directly. The power of thunder on the sword flowed into the vines, binding Ku Shan even tighter. Ku Shan was not even able to move his fingers. If I remember correctly, Tianlang Mountain once said that there are no eyes in a fight. Life and death are up to fate, right? Jiang Chen, if you dare to hurt Ku Shan, I will definitely kill you today. Ku Sun was worried that Jiang Chen would really make a move. Although Ku Shan was only a third-level immortal venerable, if he was killed by Jiang Chen, their Tianlang Mountain would no longer have the face to continue living in the eastern region. Moreover, their sect master and 3 quasi-immortal kings had already gone missing. He could not accept any more accidents happening to their experts. What if I insist on killing you? Jiang Chen snorted coldly. After saying that, he swung his long sword. The long sword that was mixed with the thunder force was incomparably sharp. It directly cut through the vines and cut Ku Shan's neck. Plop! With one slash, Ku Shan's head fell to the ground. After rolling a few times, it stopped in front of the disciples of the 3 major sections. Seeing this scene, those people were so frightened that they kept retreating. A third-level immortal venerable being killed by a second-level heaven immortal was something that they did not even dare to imagine. But now, it happened right in front of them. With his head cut off, Ku Shan was already dead. Even if there was an immortal emperor's pill, there was no way to save him. With a thought, Jiang Chen removed all the vines. Ku Shan's body fell limply on the ground. From the wound, blood slowly flowed out, dyeing the white stone bricks red. I have underestimated him. Seeing the scene in front of him, the worried expression on the great elder's face disappeared without a trace. His whole body relaxed. I also did not expect him to be able to kill a third-level immortal venerable. Bai Xiaoyun was also very surprised. However, what surprised him the most wasn't the fact that Jiang Chen had killed Ku Shan, but the fact that the wood element immortal method could trap a practitioner who was 2 levels higher than him, and make him at his mercy was definitely not an average thing. It was highly possible that he had gotten it from the grave of an immortal emperor. Only an immortal method left by an immortal emperor could be so powerful. Jiang Chen, you dare to kill the people of our Tianlang Mountain. If we don't get rid of you today, there will be no need for our Tianlang Mountain to exist in the eastern region in the future. Compared to the Great Elder and Bai Xiaoyun who were relaxed, Ku Sun was extremely angry at this moment. He did not expect Jiang Chen to be able to defeat Ku Shan, nor did he expect that Jiang Chen would dare to kill him. Elder Ku Sun, this is the rule that you have set. Do you think that only you can kill me and I have to sit and wait for my death? Jiang Chen looked at Ku Sun coldly. He did not back down at all. Sharp-tongued brat, follow me back to Tianlang Mountain. Ku Sun's entire body erupted with a very powerful aura. As he spoke, his figure had already flashed in front of Jiang Chen. His hand was about to grab Jiang Chen's neck. Stop! An old voice sounded. Just as Ku Sun was about to grab Jiang Chen, the Great Elder's palm suddenly pressed down on his arm, causing his palm to be less than half a meter away from Jiang Chen, but he could no longer move forward. Great Elder Su, he killed the people of our Tianlang Mountain. Ku Sun frowned. The rules were set by you, and my words are also here. No matter who dares to hurt Jiang Chen today, our Qian He sect will not rest until one of the sects completely disappears from the eastern region. If you don't believe me, you can come and try. The Great Elder shouted in a deep voice. Chapter 1634. These words were not only said to Ku Sun, but also to the people of the other 2 sections. After the first elder's voice fell, no one dared to speak. Although they came today to seek an explanation, they did not dare to offend the Qian He sect, the most mysterious sect in the eastern region. Once they offended them, only death would await them. Well, for the sake of Great Elder Su Qian, I can let you go. Ku Sun stared at Jiang Chen for a while before retracting his hand. Thank you for your understanding. The first elder pretended to smile. However, I will still investigate the matter of the sect master's disappearance. If it is really related to Jiang Chen, I hope that Great Elder Su Qian will not shield this person and give our 3 sects an explanation. Ku Sun glanced at Jiang Chen gloomily. No problem, our Qian He sect will definitely cooperate. The first elder waved his hand and said casually, Let's go! Ku's son waved his hand and was ready to leave with everyone. Just when everyone thought it was over, Jiang Chen's voice suddenly sounded. Great Elder Ku's son, wait a minute, you seem to have forgotten something. What is it? Ku's son took a deep breath and clenched his fists tightly before loosening them stiffly. Only then did he suppress the anger in his heart and turned his head to ask. Of course, it's the bet that we made before I fought with Ku Shan. If he wins, I'll follow you back to Heavenly Gem Mountain and tell you everything that happened in the Celestial Emperor's tomb. But if I win, you'll have to kneel down to me and Great Elder Su Qian and apologize for what you did today. Great Elder Ku's son, you can't have forgotten, right? The words that shocked everyone came out of Jiang Chen's mouth. For a moment, everyone thought that Jiang Chen had gone crazy. It was obvious that Ku's son wanted to stop today's matter for the sake of the Qianhe sect. Not only did this kid not know how to restrain himself, but he also dared to say such words. Moreover, with these words, all of Ku Yan's escape routes were blocked. What did you say? The corners of Ku's son's mouth twitched, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. Jiangchen, I won't bicker with you today because of First Elder Su Qian. Don't push your luck, I can kill you with a flip of my hand. Do you want to go back on your word? Jiangchen was not afraid of him at all. That's right, Elder Ku Sunday. This is a rule that was set before the fight. As an elder of Tianlang Mountain, you can't possibly go back on your words in front of the 4 sects and hundreds of disciples, right? I'm afraid that this is the real move that will make your Tianlang Mountain lose face. Sensing that something was wrong with Ku's son's situation, Bai Xiaoyun took 2 steps forward and stood directly beside Jiangchen. Her immortal king aura was undoubtedly released, and it seemed like she was about to attack if there was any disagreement. Although Ape and Huafu did not speak, they both took a step forward. But when they mobilized their immortal powers to support Jiangchen, they found that their immortal powers at the 6th and 5th stage of the Immortal King realm could not be used at all. The immortal powers they released were only at the level of immortal monarchs. What's going on? Ape looked serious and asked in a low voice. I'm afraid it's the Immortal Emperor's doing. As long as we leave the tomb, the immortal powers in our bodies will be sealed. Huafu's coquettish face was also full of disbelief. But when she thought about it carefully, she quickly figured out the reason. This Emperor Qianji! Ape cursed in a low voice. When we followed him, we were only at the level of immortal monarchs. We only broke through to the Immortal King realm because of the good fortune he gave us. Now that we've left, we've been restored to the level of immortal monarchs. It's not unacceptable. Huafu was very thorough. For her, the strength of immortal monarchs was enough to deal with all the troubles she encountered. Seeing the 3 people who suddenly stepped forward, Ku's son hesitated. He knew his own strength. He knew that he would be defeated by First Elder Su Qian, not to mention the experts around Jiangchen. Moreover, he suddenly remembered that when his disciple came back, Jiangchen had said that when Jiangchen came to the tomb of the Immortal Emperor, he was followed by nearly 10 immortal kings. Jiangchen, I've already decided to let you go. Let's forget about today's matter. Ku's son exhaled a few mouthfuls of turbid qi, forcibly suppressing the anger in his heart, and said in a low voice. I don't think so. Elder Ku's son, you're an elder of a sect. If you don't keep your words, you'll be looked down upon by others. Besides, if you agree to a bet, you have to accept defeat. Jiangchen shook his head and his attitude was very firm. Don't go too far. Ku's son was a little flustered and exasperated. It was useless to say anything good or bad. Today, he had already lost face in front of the 4 sections. If he really knelt down, the news would spread throughout the eastern region tomorrow. Great Elder, what do you say? Jiangchen tilted his head and asked. Don't go back on your word. The Great Elder was also a little disgusted by Ku's son's sudden interrogation today. All right. Seeing that he couldn't avoid kneeling down, Ku's son's hands trembled and he took 2 steps back. Under the gaze of hundreds of people, he suddenly knelt on the ground and kowtowed twice to the position where Jiangchen and the Great Elder were standing. When his head touched the stone brick, Ku's son felt that he was no longer himself. From today onwards he would become the joke of the entire eastern region. Even the disciples of Tianlang Mountain would no longer respect him. Instead, they would poke at his spine and treat him as a laughingstock. "Elder Ku's son, get up," Jiangchen said with satisfaction. "Let's go." Ku's son stood up with a dull expression. With a wave of his hand, he walked straight out of Qianhe sect, not even bothering with Ku Shan's corpse. Within a few minutes, hundreds of people left one after another. Except for the cracked floor and the corpse on the ground, no one knew what had just happened. "Disperse!" The great elder waved his hand and said in a deep voice. A few disciples quickly stepped forward and disposed of Ku Shan's corpse. The other disciples scattered in all directions, leaving only Bai Shaoyun and the others standing there. "Jiangchen, you did a good job today. To be able to kill an immortal prime as a second-layer heaven immortal, in my impression, there aren't many people who can do that. But this time, you have also formed a grudge with Tianlang Mountain. They will definitely hold a grudge against you in the future." The great elder patted Jiangchen's shoulder and asked worriedly. "Great elder?" Jiangchen laughed. "As early as in immortal ancient Doubt City, Tianlang Mountain had already regarded me as a thorn in their side. In the immortal emperor's tomb, they repeatedly attacked me. Our grudge has already been formed. This time, it just deepened a little. Although that's the case, you still have to be careful. If you are in the eastern region, I can protect your safety. But you will have to leave sooner or later." The great elder nodded and sighed. Chapter 1635. After closing the door, everyone returned to the main hall. Just as they were about to enter, Ape pulled Jiangchen's arm. "We have something to tell you." Ape and Huafu stood together, looking serious. "What's the matter?" Seeing their expressions, Jiangchen thought something serious had happened. "After we came out of the tomb, we were only at the immortal monarch realm." Little Ape sighed. He still couldn't accept this reality. He even wanted to blame Monarch Qianji. "What's the matter?" Jiangchen was a little surprised. "We were able to reach the immortal king realm because of the opportunity given by the immortal monarch. Now that we have left the tomb, the immortal monarch must have sealed our cultivation. We are only at the immortal monarch realm for the time being. I don't know when we can recover our previous strength." Huafu felt that something was wrong with Ape's mood, so she took the initiative to speak. She explained everything clearly in a few sentences. "Is there any impact on your strength?" Jiangchen touched his chin. This was the first time he had heard of this. "Just a drop in our strength. Other than that, I don't feel any discomfort." Huafu shrugged. "You can still cultivate your strength back." Jiangchen didn't feel anything. The only thing he was unhappy about was the disappearance of 2 experts above the 5th layer of the immortal king realm. "If Emperor Qianji hadn't died in the battle thousands of years ago, I would have asked him why he did this." Ape clenched his fist, looking very unhappy. Hearing Ape's words, Jiangchen thought of the situation he had seen in the bounded domain. He bade farewell to the 2 of them and walked to his room. "What's wrong with him?" Seeing Jiangchen in such a hurry, Ape and Huafu looked at each other in surprise. They didn't know why he suddenly became like this. "I don't know either." Huafu shrugged. After returning to the room, Jiangchen closed the door and windows tightly. Taking out the map from his storage ring, Jiangchen fell into deep thought. That year, in order to protect his mother, Emperor Qianji did not hesitate to fight with He Tiandi, which led to heavy casualties in the sect. In the end, he fell with the sect disciples. In that case, this map should be something very important. However, Jiangchen really didn't understand what area was marked on the map. Was it the immortal emperor's private stash of treasures or immortal jades? Of course, Jiangchen had another idea. This map was the real location of his mother's residence. Based on Emperor Qianji's affection for his mother, this was very possible. However, the immortal world was vast and boundless, not to mention the unknown regions. Now that Bai Xianling had entered the place to investigate the whereabouts of his mother, if he wanted to enter, he would have to at least reach the immortal king realm first. If this was really his mother's residence, he might really be able to see the person he had been longing for day and night. After thinking for a while, Jiangchen put the map back into the storage ring. Looking for his mother was a matter for later. The top priority was to solve the threat of the Black Sect's sovereign, Tianlang Mountain. Ku's son came back with his disciple in a mighty manner. Elder. Seeing him, the disciple quickly trotted over. Get lost! Ku's son roared. Then, he kicked forward directly on the disciple's chest. The disciple's cultivation was only around the level of a golden immortal. He couldn't bear such a fierce force at all. After flying back dozens of meters, he fell hard on the wall and spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body lay on the ground and kept twitching. The sudden situation stunned everyone in the sect. They didn't know why Ku's son, who had always been kind, suddenly hurt his own sect's disciple. Not only the disciples, but even some of the guardians and elders didn't dare to step forward. If I don't kill Jiangchen, I swear I'm not a human! Ku's son clenched his fists tightly. His nails were deeply embedded in his flesh, but he was completely unaware. Kneeling in front of the Qianhe sect made him lose all his dignity. From that moment on, there was no longer the sect in his mind. He no longer searched for Ku Wanjuan's whereabouts. The only thing in his mind was to make Jiangchen disappear completely from the immortal world. For this, he was willing to pay any price. Now that the sect master has disappeared in the immortal emperor's tomb, from today onwards, everyone in Tianlang Mountain will listen to my orders. If anyone dares to disobey, don't blame me for punishing them with the highest punishment in the sect. Ku's son shouted in a low voice when he saw the disciples who stood around and didn't dare to move or speak. He wanted to gather the power of the entire sect to kill Jiangchen. Why? At this moment, a rather young voice sounded. Among the many disciples, Kuyu walked out. Ku's son, you're just one of the elders in our Tianlang Mountain. I'm the young sect master. Now that father is missing, the entire Tianlang Mountain should listen to my orders and respect me as the sect master. Since when is it your turn to talk nonsense here? Father has only been missing for 2 days, and you're eager to establish yourself as the sect master. This makes me suspect that father's disappearance has something to do with you. Kuyu sneered and pointed at Ku's son with disdain. Young sect master, I'm doing this for the sake of the sect. Moreover, I have no interest in the position of sect master. As long as the matter in front of you is resolved, you can ascend to the position of sect master. Ku's son took a deep breath. For the sake of young sect master Kuyu, he didn't want to make a move. You're making it sound nice. You said that after resolving the matter in front of you, you should be dealing with me. After you've dealt with me, the young sect master, you can become the sect master of Tianlang Mountain. Kuyu didn't believe Ku's son's words at all. Young sect master, please don't suspect me. Ku's son clenched his fists. He had suffered enough humiliation in the Qianhe sect. He originally thought that after returning to the sect, he could start planning how to get rid of Jiangchen, but now Kuyu had appeared. He couldn't deal with Kuyu directly like how he dealt with the ordinary disciples. The few immortal kings in the sect who were loyal to Ku Wanjun would definitely not allow him to do so. Alright then. Since you don't want me to suspect you, from now on, everyone in Tianlang Mountain will listen to my orders. No matter what you want to do, you must get my permission. Otherwise, your cultivation will be crippled and you will be kicked out of the sect. Kuyu wasn't a fool. He knew that the sect was now in the most sensitive and dangerous period. If someone like Ku's son took advantage of this loophole, then not only would he not be able to become the sect master, he might even die an unnatural death. Young sect master. Ku's son's face was terrifyingly gloomy. If it weren't for his fear of the few immortal kings in the sect, he would have already killed Kuyu. What? You just said that you won't fight for the position, and now you don't want to obey my orders? Kuyu looked coldly at Ku's son. When the latter brought the disciples out of the sect, he was already on guard. Chapter 1636. I'll obey. Ku's son gritted his teeth and said. Then, Elder Ku's son, please go back and rest. Remember to inform me if you need anything in the future. Now that I'm the sect master of Heavenly Gem Mountain, I naturally have to play a role. Ku Yu waved his hand casually. Yes. Ku Sun cupped his fists and glanced at Ku Yu gloomily before walking towards his residence. Invite all the sect masters and immortal kings to the main hall. I have something to say to them. After dealing with Ku Sun, Ku Yu was even more confident that he could support the entire sect. Soon, the disciples passed down his order. More than a dozen people gathered in the main hall, listening to Ku Yu's words. In Qianhe sect, Jiangchen was sitting cross-legged on the bed, reading the immortal techniques that he had brought out from the treasure pavilion. The technique that he used to defeat Ku Shan was from the wood attribute immortal technique, beginning of all beginnings. When Jiangchen first obtained this immortal technique, he had already flipped through it. Due to his wood attribute immortal qi, he had learned the most common technique. If it wasn't for this technique, Jiangchen wouldn't have been able to defeat Ku Shan. These immortal techniques were difficult for Jiangchen to fully comprehend. From the second level onwards, it required the strength of an immortal venerable. With his current cultivation base, he was afraid that he wouldn't even be able to learn the basics. Including the beginning of all beginnings, Jiangchen had only imitated it. Even so, he was able to kill an immortal venerable with his heavenly immortal cultivation base. If he could truly comprehend these immortal techniques, he was afraid that he would have the confidence to escape from an immortal monarch. This immortal emperor is more interesting than Bai Xianling. After keeping the immortal techniques, Jiangchen sighed with emotion. Although Bai Xianling was known as one of the three immortal kings, Tianji Pavilion was too poor. Even if they searched the entire sect, they wouldn't even be able to gather 50 million immortal jades. Each of the immortal arts of monarch Xianji was worth at least 3 billion immortal jades. In addition to the immortal emperor's tomb, it wouldn't be a problem to buy 20 billion immortal jades. It was just that Jiangchen was only thinking about it. The other things were fine, but Jiangchen didn't intend to sell these immortal techniques. By the time he fully comprehended them, he would definitely have reached the immortal king realm. At that time, it would be time for him to nurture his own forces. He couldn't just rot in the divination pavilion forever. Not only would he not be able to earn any benefits, he might even end up losing his life. Bang bang! Just as Jiangchen was thinking, someone knocked on the door. Please come in. Jiangchen coughed, put all the immortal arts in front of him into the storage ring, and said slowly. The person who came in was Bai Fingyu. The moment she entered, she sat beside Jiangchen's bed. What's the matter? Ever since the previous incident, Jiangchen felt that he should keep some distance from Bai Fingyu. Otherwise, sooner or later there would be trouble. Hence, he sat inside and asked awkwardly, I'm here to bring you some water. Bai Fingyu got up and walked to the table, poured a cup of water, and brought it to Jiangchen. Thank you all. Jiangchen was speechless. You're welcome. Bai Fingyu smiled sweetly. Then, her expression changed slightly. Master, I want to ask. Isn't Sister Wufu the spiritual beast guarding the immortal emperor's barrier? Now that she has regained her freedom, why didn't she return to the bathing flame phoenix race? Why is she following us? She and Little Ape just came out. I don't know where they are going, so she wants to follow us to familiarize herself with the immortal world before leaving. Jiangchen took a sip, put the cup down, and said, That's it. Bai Fingyu frowned slightly. Of course. When has Master ever lied to you? They are at the 5th level of the immortal king realm and above. How can they always follow behind a heavenly immortal like me? Why don't you use your brain to think? Jiangchen said with a smile. He hoped that Little Ape and Hufu could follow them. Unfortunately, his temple was too small and couldn't accommodate the two great gods. All right, then I'm relieved. Upon hearing Jiangchen's words, Bai Fingyu relaxed completely. She stood up and walked out of the room as light as a feather. What do you mean relieved? Jiangchen was confused. What replied him was Bai Fingyu gently waving her white slender hand. This girl is getting more and more unfathomable. Jiangchen shook his head and smiled. He didn't take it to heart. After closing the door, he continued to take out the immortal technique from his storage ring and read it again. Night fell. In the quiet heavenly gem mountain, Ku's son was sitting by the bed. He recalled everything that happened today. Just as he was about to tell Kuyu the truth and use the strength of Heavenly Gem Mountain to persuade the Thousand Beast sect and Green Qilin sect to secretly take action against Jiangchen, a wisp of black fog rose in his room. Sect Master Ku-sun, I understand your feelings very well. However, young Sect Master is very wary of you now. If you dare to look for him, he will definitely find a way to take you down. At that time, not only will you not be able to take revenge, you might even be crippled of your cultivation and driven out of the sect. The Sect Master of the Black Sect said as soon as he appeared. Who are you? Ku-sun had never seen him before. Just like Ku Wanjun and Kuyu, he immediately became vigilant. Leave our sect immediately! You don't want to kill Jiangchen? You don't want to know why your sect master left the Immortal Emperor's tomb? You want Kuyu to drive you out of Heavenly Gem Mountain? The sect master of the Black Sect stood motionless. Since he left the Immortal Emperor's tomb, he directly hid in Heavenly Gem Mountain, ready to find an opportunity to take action again. Now that he found Ku-sun, he was sure that this person would be his helper. Who are you? Why do you know so much about me? Ku-sun was stunned for a moment. He quickly took 2 steps back, picked up the short sword on the wall, and pointed it directly at the person in front of him. Who I am is not important. What's important is that you consider my problem first. If you don't want to do anything, then I can turn around and leave now. However, no one can help you in the future. The sect master of the Black Sect turned around and pretended to leave. This trick could be said to be effective in any situation. Wait. Ku-sun thought for a moment and reached out to stop him. Sure enough, I didn't misjudge you. The sect master of the Black Sect turned around and said pretentiously. But you have to tell me why you want to help me. And why do you know so much about our Heavenly Gem Mountain and my matters, and how are you going to help me? Although Ku-sun agreed, he still didn't completely let down his guard. You don't need to know so much. Listen to me. I can make the entire Heavenly Gem Mountain yours. The sect master of the Black Sect couldn't explain these things to him. Chapter 1637. What right do you have to say that? You're not from Tianlang Mountain. Why are you interfering in our matters? Ku-sun was still a little vigilant. He could feel that there was something wrong with the person in front of him, but he needed this person's help. Otherwise, he might really be schemed against by Kuyu. I also have some grudges with Jiangchen, the Black Sect master said faintly. With your strength, you should be able to get rid of him easily. Why do you still need to join forces with me? Ku-sun slowly put down the short sword in his hand. You should know about the Pact of Two Realms and the 1,000-Year Pact, right? The Black Sect master said casually. Although he didn't care about these rules at all, if he didn't abide by them, he would still cause unnecessary trouble for himself. Ku-sun was silent. He knew that with his current strength and situation, there was no way for him to take revenge. He even had to face the possibility of Kuyu attacking him at any time and driving him out of the sect. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. The rumors about him in the eastern region would also become more and more fierce. As long as you agree today, I can make you the sect master of Tianlang Mountain and help you get rid of Jiangchen. The Black Sect master crossed his legs. I agree. Thinking of the humiliation he suffered in Xianhe's sect today and how his face was actually rubbed against the ground by a brat with only the cultivation of a celestial immortal, he couldn't bear it anymore and directly agreed. That's right. Remember what you said. If you want to go back on your words, you're not qualified. The Black Sect master sneered and directly pressed one hand on Ku-sun's shoulder. Immediately, his figure slowly disappeared from the stool. Then, his entire body invaded Ku-sun's body. You! Ku-sun was shocked when he sensed the abnormality. Don't worry, I'm just borrowing your body. Next, you just need to listen to my orders. I guarantee that you'll become the sect master of Tianlang Mountain and get your revenge. The Black Sect master's voice also came from his mouth. Ku-sun didn't reply. It wasn't that he agreed, but when the Black Sect master's voice fell, the light in his eyes disappeared. Then, His eyes were as black as ink, looking extremely strange. Walking out of the room, Ku-sun went straight to the main hall of the sect. At the same time, Kuyu had gathered all the elders and immortal kings in the sect to discuss how to eliminate dissidents in the sect and eliminate all those who were scheming for the position of sect master. Out of respect for Ku Wanjun, no one dared to refute him. "Young sect master, how can I be absent from the sect assembly?" Ku-sun's voice came from outside. He pushed open the door of the hall with one hand and looked at the young man sitting in the middle. "Elder Ku-sun, I'm not asking you to go back and rest. You don't need to participate in tonight's meeting for the time being. When I have something to tell you, I'll naturally tell you." Kuyu was taken aback. When he regained his senses, he was a little angry. "Please leave this place. Don't disturb us. Let me guess, you should be discussing how to drive me out of the sect, right?" Ku-sun sneered and sat directly in a seat in the hall. "Withered falcon! Don't think too highly of yourself. You're just an immortal monarch. You're just helping the sect master deal with the matters of the sect. Do you really think that your position in the sect is unparalleled?" Hearing Ku-sun's words, an old man in the first layer of the immortal king realm sneered. "Do all of you have the same idea?" Ku-sun looked around. "Seeing that you've made some contributions to the sect, you should take the initiative to leave Tianlang Mountain. Otherwise, I'll immediately cripple your cultivation." With the support of a few immortal kings, Kuyu did not put him in his eyes at all. He pointed at him and scolded in a low voice. "Let me hear it again." Before Kuyu's voice fell, Ku-sun's figure suddenly disappeared from the hall. In less than a breath, his hand had already grabbed Kuyu's neck. He stared at Kuyu and asked faintly, "You're not Ku-sun?" When their eyes met, Kuyu clearly felt that something was wrong with Ku-sunde. He felt all the hair on his body stand on end. Because of fear, even his voice became shrill. "Ku-sun, let go of the young sect master! Ku-sun, you're pushing yourself to a point of no return. If you dare to hurt the young sect master, we'll definitely kill you here today." After the few immortal kings reacted, they all pointed at him and scolded loudly. "A bunch of minions! Do you really think you're a match for me?" Ku-sun smiled sinisterly. He directly lifted Kuyu and threw him heavily to the ground. With this throw, Kuyu directly spat out a mouthful of blood. "Young sect master!" Everyone quickly surrounded him and protected him behind them. They also stared at Ku-sun, ready to attack at any time. "There's no need for Tianlang Mountain to exist in the eastern region. If you submit to me now, you still have a chance to survive. Otherwise, I'll turn you into ashes in an instant." Standing in the hall, Ku-sun looked at the people standing below. There was no emotion in his words. "Traitor of the sect!" A sect protector who had just advanced to the immortal king realm could not help but take a step forward. He was still very familiar with Ku-sun's strength. He was around the immortal lord realm. There was no problem in dealing with him at all. "Oh?" Ku-sun was a little surprised. "I'll kill you now and clean up the sect for the sect master." As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately rushed up. Ku-sun looked at his figure and directly waved his hand. A few finger-thick black pillars shot out and directly entered the former's body, nailing him to the wall of the hall a few meters away. "Ku-sun!" After seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. This kind of method did not seem like a move of their Tianlang Mountain at all. Moreover, when Ku-sun attacked just now, the aura that erupted from him also made them feel terrified. It could be said that the Ku-sun in front of them was completely different from the Ku-sun they knew. "Who else wants to try?" Ku-sun raised his head and looked at them. "What on earth do you want to do?" Kuyu swallowed his saliva and was a little afraid. He knew that if Ku-sun attacked him just now, he would not have the chance to stand here and speak at all. "Submit to me," Ku-sun said indifferently. Immediately, he clenched his fist hard, and the immortal king who was stabbed into the wall by him let out a sharp scream. A few pillars twisted under his control and pierced toward his heart. Under their dull gazes, the pillars directly pierced through the heart. The immortal king struggled hard, but it did not have any effect. A moment later, His originally twisting limbs stiffened, and his aura slowly disappeared. Chapter 1638. Young Sect Master! The remaining immortal kings did not know what to do. Now that Ku Falcon could kill a cultivator in the first layer of the immortal king realm so easily, it wasn't something they could handle. I'll listen to your orders. Kuyu hesitated for a moment, then knelt down on one knee. Now that his father was dead, these immortal kings in the sect could not save his life. The only thing they could do now was to listen to Ku's Sunday, otherwise he felt that he would end up in a worse state than this immortal king. What about you guys? Ku's son pointed at the few people standing beside Kuyu. We'll listen to your orders too. Even Kuyu had given up on resisting, so they did not want to risk their lives for it. Ha ha! Consider it your duty. Kuyu stays, the rest of you leave. Ku's son laughed loudly, then turned and sat on Ku Wanjuan's seat. The immortal kings did not dare to speak and could only retreat, leaving Kuyu standing there trembling. After the immortal kings left, the door of the main hall suddenly closed. Kuyu subconsciously turned back to look and saw the immortal king nailed to the wall, dead in a tragic state. His legs went weak and he fell to the ground. Do you want to kill Jiangchen? Ku's son's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of him. Yes. Kuyu nodded in a daze. Very good, I'll help you. Ku's son reached out and placed his hand on Kuyu's shoulder. A wisp of black aura flowed from his palm into Kuyu's body. Before Kuyu could react, he felt a huge force wrap around him. After a moment, Ku's son retracted his hand. Kuyu was in the same situation as the three immortal kings. His eyes were faintly black and his aura had become dark and gloomy. The next day, Jiangchen rubbed his aching temples. Yesterday, he had looked through the few immortal techniques in the treasury. Although there were some moves that he could not comprehend, Jiangchen was already able to fuse two different types of immortal energy together. However, according to the explanation of the fusion method, in order to fuse three or more types, one's cultivation must be at the immortal venerable realm, or even the immortal monarch realm. With his current cultivation at the heavenly immortal realm, it was already not easy for him to be able to fuse two types. In the past, Jiangchen would not have cared about such things. As long as his cultivation base was sufficient, it was fine. Not to mention, he had the support of his senior brothers and sisters in the heavenly secret pavilion. Even if he were to encounter danger, he could easily deal with it. But now, Jiangchen was somewhat dissatisfied with his strength. First, there was the Black Sect Master secretly making a move against him. Bai Xiaoyun alone was not enough to protect him. Second, he saw the person who looked like his mother in the Immortal Emperor's enchantment. Jiangchen had a premonition that that woman should be his mother. According to Bai Xianling, his mother might be living in an unknown area in the Immortal Realm. The map given by Emperor Qianji should be the exact location of his mother's residence. Jiangchen wanted to look for it, but he knew that his strength was not enough to enter the unknown region. After all, it was a place that even Bai Xianling was wary of. He was afraid that he would only be qualified to enter it when he reached the Immortal King realm. Mother, I'll definitely find you. Jiangchen held the art of fusion tightly in his hand and said in a deep voice. What are you talking about? The door opened and Bai Xiaoyun walked in with a smirk on her face. Nothing, I'm thinking about whether to return to the heavenly secret pavilion. Jiangchen kept the art of fusion and said, I'm the sect master now. I can't always be outside. That's nothing. When Master built the heavenly secret pavilion, there were disciples who entered the sect for 4 or 5 years without seeing him. You've only been out for a few days. Besides, we're not here to play. During this period of time, we've earned at least a few billion immortal jades for the sect. It's enough to cover the sect's daily expenses for a few years. Bai Xiaoyun sat beside Jiangchen and said, Junior brother, now I'm more and more convinced that Master's decision to give you the position of sect master was very correct. Senior brother, what method do you have to increase my cultivation base in a short time? Jiangchen was not interested in the heavenly secret pavilion. Didn't you just become a celestial immortal? Bai Xiaoyun was a little surprised. Your speed is far beyond most people, and it's too risky. If it weren't for Old Shoe's protection, I'm afraid you would have exploded and died in the tomb. I know. Jiang Chen nodded. He could clearly feel the danger he had faced that day. So, you don't have to worry now. When your cultivation base increases, it will naturally increase. This kind of thing can't be rushed. What's more, we're here to protect you, so you don't have to worry too much. Bai Xiaoyan thought that Jiang Chen was worried about the Black Sex Sect master, so she comforted him. Okay. Jiang Chen nodded helplessly. After resting in the Qianhe sect for 2 days, Jiang Chen was ready to leave. The auction and the Immortal Emperor's tomb were over, so it was useless to continue to stay in the eastern region. It was better to return to the Kunlun Immortal Mountain and go into seclusion to see if he could study these immortal techniques. Even if he only learned a little, he would have some confidence when dealing with the Black Sex Sect master in the future. After bidding farewell to the Great Elder, Jiang Chen left the Qianhe sect with Bai Xiaoyan, Bai Fengyu, and the little ape Huafu. Standing at the door, the first elder looked at the departing figure and let out a deep sigh. Great Elder, it seems that we still can't keep him. A protector stood beside the Great Elder and said faintly. He's the pavilion master of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion and the leader of the Overseas Immortal Mountain Alliance. It's too difficult to keep him here. He also disdains to stay in our Qianhe sect. The Great Elder smiled helplessly and continued. I only hope that this kid can remember this kindness and help our Qianhe sect when we encounter trouble in the future. Trouble? Our Qianhe sect stands tall in the eastern region. No sect dares to provoke us. Great Elder, you're an expert no weaker than the 3 immortal kings. What trouble will our sect encounter? These words made the protector a little confused. You don't know. The Great Elder smiled. Is it Tianlang Mountain and the other 2 sects? The protector racked his brains but still couldn't think of any trouble the sect would encounter. If it's them, I don't have to worry so much. Forget it, it's useless to tell you now. You only need to know that the disaster of our Qianhe sect is coming soon. It depends on whether the sect master can come out of seclusion before then. It also depends on whether Jiang Chen will help us. The Great Elder waved his hand, obviously unwilling to say anything more. Jiang Chen is just a celestial immortal. How can he help when even the Great Elder can't solve the problem? The protector was even more confused. Chapter 1639. You will naturally know when the time comes. The Great Elder waved his hand and walked into the sect. It's really strange. The trouble that the Immortal King can't solve is actually pointed to a celestial immortal to help. Could it be that the Great Elder is old and confused? The protector looked at the back of the Great Elder and scratched his head. Leaving the Qianhe sect, Jiang Chen took the 4 people and quickly rushed to the northern region. On the way from the Qianhe sect to the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, there was a town called the Nameless Town. According to legend, thousands of years ago, there was a nameless immortal king living here. This person was open-minded and accepted countless disciples. Some cultivators who knew that their cultivation was not enough to become the nameless immortal king's disciples still gathered here, thinking that maybe one day they would accidentally meet the nameless immortal king and be able to be guided by him, thus breaking through their current cultivation. Therefore, in thousands of years, from a small village, it gradually became the largest town on the edge of the eastern region, close to the northern region. Even after the fall of the nameless immortal king, there were still many people living here. Among them, there were countless auctions, schools, and even underground black fists. It could be said that the nameless town during the day and the nameless town at night were completely different places. I didn't expect that the nameless immortal king's reputation would be so resounding. After rushing to the town and hearing Bai Xiaoyun's introduction, Jiang Chen couldn't help but sigh. Che, it's just a nameless immortal king. When the Emperor of Qianji was alive, this person also came to visit, but at that time, as long as the cultivation base of the immortal king, he was rejected by the immortal king. Little Ape said with some disdain. Oh? This nameless immortal king also had such a past with the Emperor of Qianji? Jiang Chen's heart of gossip was ignited. The story of this legendary figure was the best topic of conversation after a meal. The two have never even met. Later, the Emperor of Qianji heard some of the deeds of the nameless immortal king. He intended to pull him into the Qianji sect, but the nameless immortal king's nameless town was already quite large and could not be left. Little Ape continued. It was he who passed the message to the nameless immortal king. Why don't we stay here for 2 days and see what the largest town in the eastern region looks like? Jiang Chen said in a low voice as he looked at the people coming and going and the hubbub of voices around them. What's more, there was an auction here. The items that they obtained from the immortal emperor's tomb could be sold here. This way, even if they returned to the Kunlun celestial mountain empty-handed, it would be easy for them to evade the first mountain lord's questions. It was just that Jiang Chen had been so busy recently that he had forgotten about Xianyu. If he returned empty-handed, he might not even be able to enter the 9th mountain. Ahem, eldest senior brother, take them to find a place to stay first. I have something to deal with. Jiang Chen patted his head and hurriedly walked towards the bustling roadside. What is he going to do? Fire Lotus moved closer to Bai Xiaoyun. Maybe she has some personal matters to deal with. Bai Xiaoyun blushed and took a few steps back, deliberately putting some distance between her and Fire Lotus. Then let's go. After such a long journey, I'm a little tired. Bai Xiaoyun's retreat made Fire Lotus feel a little bored. She raised her eyes and scanned the surroundings. When she saw a hotel nearby, she directly walked over. 5th stage Immortal King. Will you be tired? Bai Xiaoyun asked without any temper. Immortal Monarch, Immortal Monarch. Little Ape added with a gloomy face. This was already a knot in his heart. If not for the disappearance of the Immortal Emperor's tomb, he would definitely go back and break into the sect's enchantment. He would personally ask the soul of Emperor Qianji why he did this. Walking to a small stall by the roadside, Jiang Chen looked at some small ornaments placed on the stall. How much do these things cost? Jiang Chen glanced at them and picked up a good-looking one. He asked. 3 immortal jades is enough. If you buy more, I'll give you 2 immortal jades each. When the stall owner saw that Jiang Chen was a rich man, he directly said generously. But brother, to tell you the truth, these are not too good. I have a mysterious crystal amber here. As long as you take it out, no matter which girl it is, they will fall in love with you. How much? Looking at the finger-sized crystal that was constantly flashing with 7-colored glazed light, Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and asked. Not too much, not too little. Just 50 immortal jades. The stall owner stretched out 5 fingers and waved it in front of Jiang Chen. Not bad, wrap it up. Jiang Chen directly put it into his storage ring. Then, he took out 50 immortal jades and threw it on the stall. I'll buy one from you. You can give me this, right? No problem, no problem. Take it. The stall owner smiled like a flower. Casually picking up an ornament, Jiang Chen turned and walked towards Bai Xiaoyun. Just as Jiang Chen turned around, the stall owner's smile instantly disappeared. Then, he hammered the stall with force. When he bought the mysterious crystal amber, he only used 5 immortal jades. He wanted to see if he could meet a rich man who didn't know the value of the amber. Although he did earn 45 immortal jades. But from the way Jiang Chen paid without blinking, not to mention 50 immortal jades, he might even take 500 immortal jades. Eldest senior brother, where are they? Seeing that only Bai Xiaoyun was standing here, Jiang Chen looked around and asked. They went to the inn. They said they were a little tired and wanted to rest. Bai Xiaoyun shrugged and replied. I also don't know why an immortal king would be tired. When they came out of the immortal emperor's tomb, they had already lost their immortal king cultivation. Now they are just immortal monarch. It's understandable that they are in a bad mood. Jiang Chen said helplessly. This Emperor Qianji can control other people's strength? Bai Xiaoyun was a little surprised. Who knows? Jiang Chen shrugged. He wasn't very familiar with Emperor Qianji. When he was in the immortal world, there were a lot of immortal emperors, but at least there were 1 or 2 in each top sect. For a sect like the Tianji sect that only had immortal emperors, Jiang Chen didn't put them in his eyes. In the inn, Jiangchen booked 2 more rooms and paid for them to stay there for 3 days. After resting in the room for a while, Jiangchen came out of the room. Just as he opened the door, he saw the waiter. "Waiter, come here. I have something to ask you." Jiangchen waved at him and put 3 immortal jades in his hand. "Dear guest, our inn doesn't do such heartless things." Looking at the immortal jades in his hand, the waiter said with a trembling voice. He saw Jiangchen bring people in with his own eyes. "I just want to know where the Nameless Town's auction is. I have some things that I want to exchange for some money." Jiangchen waved his hand and said with a smile. Chapter 1640. "Oh, you're asking about this? If you leave our inn and walk 2 streets east, you'll be at the auction. But it's not time yet, so there's no point for you to go." Hearing that Jiangchen was asking about something serious, the waiter immediately put the 3 immortal jades into his pocket and said, "Why isn't it time yet?" Looking at the noisy streets outside, Jiangchen was a little curious. "This is your first time in Nameless Town, right? Let me tell you, the current Nameless Town is no longer the Nameless Town of the past. Don't be fooled by the prosperity of the day, the town's original appearance is at night. There are underground fights, auctions, and as long as you have enough money, you can even kill anyone." The waiter looked around, and seeing that there was no one else around, he dared to continue speaking. "If I want to kill an immortal king, can I do it too?" Jiangchen laughed out loud. "Brother, don't joke with me. How can you assassinate an immortal king? However, it's still possible for anyone below the immortal monarch realm." Little Fool was taken aback. He obviously didn't expect Jiangchen to say such a thing. "Go do your work." Jiangchen patted his back. After receiving this news, Jiangchen returned to his room and prepared to check out the situation at night. When the sky turned dark, Jiangchen informed by Xiaoyun and directly left the inn. He walked in the direction that the waiter said. This was the best place to sell the things in the immortal emperor's tomb. Of course, he left everything that Xian Yu and the Heaven's Secrets Pavilion could use. Behind Jiangchen, there was a figure following not too far away. Just as the waiter said, when the sky turned dark, the vendors in Nameless Town almost instantly left. The originally bustling streets became silent, and not even a shadow could be seen. Jiangchen paid attention to the situation around him. After walking 2 streets, the situation in front of him gave him a fright. After walking down this street, he could clearly see that he was in front of a chasm. Looking down, he could only see darkness. There seemed to be some light, but there seemed to be no end to it. The gap was about 12 meters wide. On both sides, people walked down the stone steps and disappeared into the darkness in the blink of an eye. Jiangchen was a little curious. Just as he was about to follow the group down, his clothes were pulled. "Feng Yu?" Turning around and seeing the person behind him, Jiangchen asked in surprise, "Weren't you resting in the inn? Why did you follow me here?" "I just want to follow you." Bai Feng Yu raised her eyebrows at him. "So be it." Looking at the surrounding situation, Jiangchen did not chase Bai Feng Yu back. Most of the people in the chasm were around the immortal realm. Occasionally, there would be a few true immortals or heavenly immortals. With him around, Bai Feng Yu would not encounter any danger. "Yes. Master, why do you think this place is so strange? Why are all these people going down?" Seeing Jiangchen agree, Bai Feng Yu smiled. "I don't know. The inn's waiter said that there's an auction here. I want to sell some of the things in the immortal emperor's tomb." Jiangchen shook his head. He was also very curious about this place. Following behind those people, Jiangchen brought her down the chasm. When they were completely in the chasm, Jiangchen discovered that not only was there a chasm, there were many caves on both sides. The stone steps led to these caves. There were also light and sounds coming from inside. Looks like this Nameless Town has a special winter. Seeing this, Jiangchen could not help but laugh. Why do I feel that it's so eerie? Bai Feng Yu tugged at her clothes and looked around vigilantly. This place is completely different from the day. Why don't we go back? Don't. This kind of auction is the best place to sell the things in the immortal emperor's tomb. Jiangchen shook his head. Even though Nameless Town was in the eastern region, the cultivation of the people here was too low. Not to mention entering the immortal emperor's tomb, they might not even have the chance to hear the news. If he sold the things like this, they would not even know who he was. This would also prevent those sects in the eastern region from targeting him and trying to take advantage of him. They stepped into the cave from the stone steps. A rotten smell assailed their nostrils. By foam you covered her mouth and nose. She could not bear the smell here. Jiangchun was still fine. Looking at the large area and the people who were busy shouting, Jiangchun knew that Nameless Town's nightlife had just begun. The two of you look a little unfamiliar. You're not from the town, right? As soon as they entered, a half-naked muscular man who looked like he was wearing some kind of beast skin stopped Jiangchun at the door. He sized him up before asking, "And I'm from the eastern region's Zhou clan. I heard that there's such an auction in Nameless Town, so I specially came to take a look." Jiangchun smiled at him and casually made up an identity. "Which Zhou clan in the eastern region? What's your name? Are you here to sell or buy things? If you want to watch the show, you have to pay 100 immortal jades as a seat fee. Who is this girl to you?" The muscular man sized up Jiangchun and Bai Fengyu and asked. "Little Zhou clan. I'm called Zhou Zhuang. I'm here to watch the show. I also have some things to sell. If I see something good, I'll also sell it. This is my..." Jiangchun did not even blink. He directly took out 200 immortal jades and handed it over. "I'm his wife." Bai Fengyu found the right opportunity and spoke first. Jiangchen's hand trembled as he handed over the money. However, thinking that it was just an identity, he did not care too much about it. On the other hand, Bai Fengyu's face was full of smiles. Her eyes were curved and even her cheeks were a little red. "It's really strange. How can an ugly person like you have such a beautiful wife?" The muscular man seemed to be a little dissatisfied. After staring at Jiangchun for a while, he put away the immortal jades and walked inside, muttering as he walked. "Master, he said you're ugly." Bai Fengyu covered her mouth and chuckled. "If you're ugly, then so be it. Anyway, it doesn't affect you." Jiangchun rolled his eyes at her. Then, he followed behind the muscular man and walked inside. Even though it was a cave dug out from the cliff, the space inside was not small. When they walked inside, Jiangchun even saw a fighting ring. There were many onlookers around, and from time to time, there would be cheers. The two people in the ring were fighting to the death. Occasionally, there would even be a slight fluctuation of immortal qi. "Master, if the nameless immortal king knew that his nameless town had become like this, what would he think?" Along the way, the smile on Bai Fengyu's face gradually disappeared. It was replaced by a frown, as if she could not accept the situation here. If not for wanting to follow Jiangchun, she would have definitely turned around and left. Chapter 1641. The nameless immortal king had already fallen a few thousand years ago. Originally, Nameless Town was a town formed by cultivators to pursue him. There was no order to speak of. Of course, there would be chaos after his death. However, although this place is chaotic, it should have formed a kind of abnormal order. Jiangchun explained to Bai Fengyu in a low voice. Although most of the cultivators here were only immortals, in such a town, there would definitely be experts. It was just that they were hidden in the dark and were not discovered by ordinary people. What a pity! Thinking of the nameless immortal king, Bai Fengyu felt a little uncomfortable. The burly man brought Jiangchun and Bai Fengyu to the auction stage and pointed to a few stone stools. "The two of you, please wait for an hour. The auction is about to begin. If you have anything you want to sell, go to that room. The person inside will give you a price. If you don't want to buy, just sit here and watch. You are not allowed to walk around. Otherwise, I will throw you into the chasm. This big brother, I'm a little curious. How did this chasm form?" Jiangchun naturally did not want to touch it. Before coming down, he had suppressed his cultivation back to true immortal stage 3. "You don't even know this? Seeing that you are more sensible, I will tell you. A few thousand years ago, The nameless immortal king once fought with an expert from another region for several months. This chasm is the evidence of their battle. The burly man looked at Jiang Chen as if he was an idiot. He waved his hand and directly said it. Thank you? Jiang Chen nodded and thanked him. After sitting here for a while, Jiang Chen brought Bai Fengyu to the room the burly man pointed to. Pushing open the door, an old man wearing a hemp robe was sitting inside. His hair was white and his eyes were cloudy. He looked like he had one foot in the coffin. Selling things? Hearing the sound of the door opening, the old man raised his head. In. Jiang Chen nodded. Stranger, you have never been to Nameless Town before, have you? Take out your stuff, and I'll appraise it for you. If it's good, I'll sell it tonight. If it's not good, you can just take it and leave. The old man extended his hand toward Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen didn't hesitate and poured all the useless things he got from the immortal emperor's tomb onto the table. Seeing the table full of scrolls and wooden boxes, the old man's turbid eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Kid, tell me the truth. Where did you get these things? The old man casually flipped through a few pages and then looked up at Jiang Chen in surprise. They're all ours. Before Jiang Chen could speak, Bai Fengyu spoke first. You're just a little girl, how did you get these things at home? The old man began to scrutinize Bai Fengyu again. Could it be that you're a young miss from some big family? My family didn't agree to our previous marriage contract, and that was why I stole all of these things from my family, and plan to sell them for immortal jades so that we can live on in the future. Bai Fengyu spoke calmly before Jiang Chen's startled gaze. I understand. The old man was after all someone who had lived for dozens of years. Hearing Bai Fengyu's words, he understood the meaning behind it. So how much can these things be sold for? Bai Fengyu pointed at the table and asked. The auction in Nameless Town has its own rules. Even though your stuff isn't bad, you won't be able to sell them for a high price here. This pile is 20,000 immortal jades for one, and this pile is 50,000 immortal jades for one. Are you okay with that? The old man quickly sorted out the items. Yes, no problem. Jiang Chen immediately agreed. These things were snatched from Chou Wanli and Zhou Yuanqing. If they could be sold for this price, Jiang Chen could accept it. In any case, keeping them would take up space, so he might as well sell them directly. If all of these were sold, he estimated that he could get over 1 million immortal jade. All right, then you can go out and wait. The old man took out a notebook and then waved his hand at Jiang Chen. After leaving the room, Bai Fengyu said somewhat anxiously, Master, if these things were sold at a regular auction, they could be sold for at least tens of millions of immortal jade. Now that they've shrunk by so much, we've lost too much. These things were plundered from the 2 sect masters of the Azure Qilin sect and the Thousand Beast sect in the Immortal Emperor's tomb. If they were sold at a regular auction, someone might recognize them and cause trouble. If they were sold here, even if they were discovered by the 2 sects, they wouldn't have any evidence to suspect us. Jiang Chen said to her with a faint smile. So that's how it is. Hearing Jiang Chen's words, Bai Fengyu understood. As for the other things, they're all stored in my storage ring. When we return to the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, you can take whatever you like. With that, Jiang Chen sat back on the stone bench. In less than an hour, the auction had already begun. Compared to a regular auction, this place was obviously more chaotic. What Jiang Chen didn't expect was that his things were actually the first to be taken out. The moment those low-grade immortal techniques, herbs, and weapons appeared, they attracted everyone's attention. Don't look at how these were all trashed to Jiang Chen. Most of the people here were immortals, with the highest being true immortals or golden immortals. They were rare treasures. Soon, Jiang Chen's hundreds of auction items were sold one by one. Among them, the lowest price was 50,000, while the highest was 200,000. Damn it! Hearing this price, Jiang Chen was a little unwilling. It had always been him who took advantage of others. When did he let others take advantage of him? After a rough calculation, he had only earned 3 million immortal jade, while the organizer of the auction had earned nearly 10 million immortal jade. This kind of profitable business made Jiang Chen have an impulse to stay here. Master, you're so greedy! Bai Fengyu couldn't help but ridicule. Forget it, forget it. After all, they didn't get it through the proper channels. If it's a little less, then it's a little less. What's more, if these things are discovered by the people of the Qinglin sect and the Wanshou sect in the future, they will attract a fatal disaster. Jiang Qin took a deep breath and could only swallow all the unhappiness back into his stomach. About 2 hours later, all of Jiang Chen's things were sold. Taking advantage of these people's attention to the next auction item, Jiang Chen went into the room. Looking at the promissory note of 1.5 million immortal jade, Jiang Chen couldn't help but ridicule. Old mister, you're really greedy. Hee hee, this is the rule of our auction. Moreover, I told you in advance, so it can't be considered as cheating you. The old man put the thick stack of promissory notes into the drawer and smiled at Jiang Chen. Chapter 1642. All right, then I'll accept the celestial jades. Jiang Chen didn't care about this, since he had gotten it for free anyway. After keeping the celestial jades, Jiang Chen left the room. Brother Zhou Zhuang, if you have any good things in the future, you're welcome to come to our auction again. The price is negotiable. Seeing Jiang Chen leave, the old man hurriedly said. If this kind of person came a few times, then they would soon become Ganges Bank's VIP guests. Jiang Chen didn't reply. After selling Zhou Yuanxing and Chou Wanli's things, Nameless Town probably wouldn't return. 3 million celestial jades! Walking in front of Bai Fengyu, Jiang Chen stretched out 3 fingers and shook them at her. Let's go, we've sold everything. There's nothing good here anyway. Let's go back and rest. We'll be on the road tomorrow. Bai Fengyu lightly nodded. Just as the two of them turned to leave, a shoe flew straight at Jiang Chen's head. Pa! The shoe hit Jiang Chen's head right on time. Master! Bai Fengyu immediately became vigilant. Nothing. Jiang Chen frowned. After patting his hair, he looked down and saw that the shoe on the ground was only the size of a palm. With one look, he could tell that it belonged to a little girl. Turning his head, Jiang Chen saw that on the stage not far from him, a little girl was curled up in a corner, shivering. She had already lost one of her shoes. The other one was obviously the same as the one that hit his head. And in front of the little girl, there was a very sturdy man. Seeing Jiang Chen looking over, the muscular man waved his fist at Jiang Chen and scolded him in disdain. What are you looking at? Hurry up and scram. If you look again, I'll kill you. Interesting. Jiang Chen's frown eased and a smile slowly appeared on his face. Didn't you hear me? I told you to get lost. Jiang Chen stood still, which made the brawny man even more angry. He was known as the king of duels here, and everyone who came here was respectful to him. There had never been someone like Jiang Chen, who dared to treat his words as wind passing by, and even dared to look at him with such eyes. Wait here for a moment, Jiang Chen instructed Bai Fengyu in a low voice before walking towards the arena. All right. Bai Fengyu's reply was very straightforward. She knew that Jiang Chen wouldn't be in any danger here. Even if everyone were to stack up, they wouldn't be Jiang Chen's match. Walking to the side of the arena, Jiang Chen looked at the little girl who was curled up in the corner. He couldn't help but feel some heartache. Sending such a child here was no different from sending her to her death. Brat, it seems like you want to die today, right? The brawny man stared at Jiang Chen. How did that shoe fly over? Jiang Chen asked calmly. No one has ever dared to talk to me like that. The brawny man was infuriated by Jiang Chen's words. He directly waved his fist and hammered at Jiang Chen's abdomen. With his cultivation of the 6th level of true immortal, he naturally didn't put Jiang Chen in his eyes. The moment he made his move, cheers rang out. It had been a long time since a battle between true immortals had appeared here. For a moment, many people stared at the arena excitedly. Some people even began to bet on the outcome of the battle. However, before they could place their bets, the brawny man who rushed over was slapped down by Jiang Chen with a light wave of his hand. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Wow! Suddenly, there was an uproar around the arena. Everyone stared at Jiang Chen with their eyes wide open. This sudden turn of events had caught them off guard. The king of single fights of the underground Black Fist had been beaten into such a state so easily? What's your name? Jiang Chen retracted his immortal power and slowly squatted in front of the little girl. Looking at her frightened expression, he asked with a smile. My name is Hikari, the little girl said in a trembling voice. Where's your family? Why are you practicing boxing here? Jiang Chen reached out and pulled her up. I don't have parents. It was my adoptive parents who sent me here. The little girl seemed to be frightened by Jiang Chen's strength just now. Even though she was grabbed by the sleeve, she still shrank back. Sent you here? Jiang Chen was a little stunned. But at this moment, a middle-aged man with a big belly walked into the arena. As soon as he came up, he directly reached out to push Jiang Chen and scolded. Brat, who told you to care about the matters here? Hurry up and get lost. Don't delay me from making money. Otherwise, I'll make you leave here lying down. You're her adoptive father? Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes. That's right, I'm her adoptive father. The middle-aged man put his hands on his hips. Such a young child, you let her practice boxing here. What if something happens? Jiang Chen pulled the little girl behind him and looked at him. What does it have to do with you? Don't cause trouble here. Hurry up and go back to where you came from. The middle-aged man reached out to grab Jiang Chen's arm. He wanted his adopted daughter to practice boxing here, so that the men here would be excited and satisfy their almost abnormal desires. If his adopted daughter didn't practice boxing, she wouldn't be able to support his daily expenses. Now that Jiang Chen suddenly appeared to change his life, of course he wasn't willing. Do you want to stay here, or do you want to leave with me? Jiang Chen didn't pay attention to him. Instead, he looked down at the little girl behind him and asked softly. Leave with you. The little girl glanced at her fiendish adoptive father and immediately hugged Jiang Chen's thigh. Although she was young, she wasn't stupid. She knew that if she continued to stay here, there would be a day where she would die on the stage. But if she left with Jiang Chen, she might be able to live. Okay, from today onwards you will follow me. With me here, no one will be able to hurt you. Jiang Chen directly grabbed her little hand and walked down the stage, ignoring the middle-aged man in front of him. You think you can take her away just because you said so? The middle-aged man waved his hand and a few men wearing black robes appeared behind him. Phone Yu, wait for me outside. Jiang Chen directly hugged the little girl to his chest and said softly to Bai Fengyu. After Bai Fengyu left, Jiang Chen's gentle expression disappeared, and a boundless immortal power erupted from him. The people standing in front of him were blown away, and they were sent flying. They crashed through the cave's gate, and fell into the chasm. The hundreds of spectators were so frightened that they didn't dare to speak. They didn't dare to provoke such a powerful person. Follow me. Jiang Chen took 2 steps forward, picked up the shoe that fell on the ground and put it on the little girl. After that, he carried her and walked out of the cave. Everyone behind stared at Jiang Chen's back view, but no one dared to stop him. If we can keep him here to practice boxing, then our Blood Wolf gang wouldn't have to lose a single immortal jade. In a dark corner, a bearded man sat on a chair and said while touching the soft waist of the girl beside him. Chapter 1643. But his strength is around the 3rd level of the Heaven Immortal Realm. With our people, I'm afraid that we won't be able to control him, right? A confidant said. There will always be a way. The bearded man sneered. After leaving with the little girl, Jiang Chen and Bai Fengyu walked up the stone steps. Hikari, how old are you? Jiang Chen looked at the little girl in his embrace. In a trance, he had a feeling that he was looking at his own daughter. However, this was just a momentary illusion. 12 years old. Hikari said softly. In the future, just follow behind me. You can call me Big Brother or Master. As for those foster parents who used you to earn money, forget about them. Jiang Chen put her down and held her hand as they walked towards the inn. Bai Fengyu quietly followed by the side. When the 3 of them walked together, the corner of her mouth couldn't help but reveal a smile. This feeling was like a family of three, making her feel very warm. In the inn, when Jiangchen entered, he saw Bai Xiaoyun sitting in the middle of the living room with his eyes closed. "Where did you go?" Bai Xiaoyun exited from his cultivation state. But before he could finish his words, he saw the little girl behind Jiangchen. He was instantly shocked and quickly asked, "Junior brother, you couldn't have gone to abduct a child, right?" "No, this is a little girl that I saved from the underground fighting. In the future, she can be considered as my disciple." Jiangchen faintly smiled and pulled the little girl to the front of Bai Xiaoyun. "Hikari, let me introduce you. This is Bai Xiaoyun. According to seniority, you should call him Martial Uncle." Jiangchen pointed at Bai Xiaoyun and said, "Martial Uncle." Hikari's eyes were timid, but she still listened to Jiangchen's words. "AI, why do I feel like she's your child when I hear you call her Martial Uncle?" As soon as Bai Xiaoyun agreed, she clearly felt that something was wrong. "Cough, cough, don't speak nonsense." Jiangchen awkwardly coughed twice. Not only Bai Xiaoyun, but he also had this premonition in his heart, but he didn't say it out loud. "Hikari, her name is Bai Fingyu. She will be your senior sister in the future. In the future, if I am not by your side, you can look for her directly if you have any problems." Jiangchen pointed at Bai Fingyu and said, "Senior sister." Perhaps it was because they were both females, but Hikari was clearly closer to Bai Fengyu. "Junior sister." Hikari made Bai Fengyu giggle. She leaned forward and carried the little girl in front of her. Then, she took out a jade pendant from her storage ring. "This is a gift from senior sister. Remember to keep it with you." "Thank you, senior sister." Hikari nodded and thanked her. Then, she wore the jade pendant in front of her chest. "Well, I've finished introducing you. Let's leave here early tomorrow morning. I still have things to do after I return to Kunlun Mountain." Jiangchen patted Hikari's head, then looked at Bai Xiaoyun and Bai Fingyu and said faintly, "I'm afraid it won't be so easy to leave." Bai Xiaoyun was just about to nod her head when she immediately frowned. "You're really haunting me." Jiangchen also quickly sensed that something was wrong. "Did you offend someone when you went out this time?" Bai Xiaoyun stretched out her hand and a white long sword appeared in her hand. Even her robes fluttered without any wind. "And in order to save this girl, we did offend someone. But I didn't expect that an immortal king would come here." Jiangchen gave Bai Fingyu a look and said softly. Bai Fingyu also hugged Hikari and retreated 2 steps, leaning against the wall. Just as Jiangchen summoned the lightning longsword, the door of the room was fiercely kicked open. "Zhou Zhuang, you attacked the stage. Come back with us now. Otherwise, you won't be able to leave Nameless Town alive." The one standing at the door was the bearded man who was sitting in the dark corner of the cave. At this moment, there was a first-layer immortal king behind him. It seemed like he was prepared to take down Jiangchen. "Who is Zhou Zhuang?" Bai Xiaoyun was confused. "It's a name I casually came up with," Jiangchen said indifferently. "I thought it was a first-layer immortal king. So it's just a first layer. Before I get angry, kneel down and apologize. Then get out of here. Otherwise, I'm afraid you will disappear without a trace in Nameless Town." Bai Xiaoyun's expression became serious. She pointed the long sword in her hand at them and snorted coldly. "Who are you?" The bearded man looked at Bai Xiaoyun. "Zhou Davuang," Bai Xiaoyun said casually. "A first-layer immortal king backing you. How dare you come here to find trouble with me?" After saying that, Bai Xiaoyun released her aura. Her cultivation of the 3rd-layer immortal king spread out. After this fluctuation spread out, the 2 rooms opposite the door suddenly opened. Little Ape and Huafu both walked out. A 3rd-layer immortal king and 2 immortal monarchs. "Brother Sun, didn't you say that there was only a kid with the cultivation of a celestial immortal?" When the expert at the first stage of the immortal king realm sensed such immortal energy, he was so scared that his legs went soft. Not to mention that these 2 powers were inferior to his immortal monarch, even this immortal king was not a match for him. Once they fought, he would definitely lose his life in less than 5 minutes. "I don't know either." The bearded man's arrogance disappeared completely. "Tell me, How do you want to solve this? If I'm not satisfied, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to leave here alive. Bai Xiaoyun held the long sword in her hand and pointed at the bearded man. Brother, we must have misunderstood. It's all my fault for having a sudden brain attack tonight. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come here, the bearded man said with a bitter face. Who would have thought that there would be such an expert in this small nameless town? Kneel down, kowtow, and apologize. Then get out of here. Don't let me see you again. Bai Xiaoyun completely ignored his words. No problem, no problem. The bearded man did not hesitate. He directly knelt on the ground and kowtowed heavily. However, the immortal king behind him was not the same. First of all, he was only hired by the bearded man to come here. Secondly, he was at the first layer of the immortal king realm. In the entire nameless town, his cultivation and strength were ranked in the top 3. Once he knelt here and the news spread, he would probably no longer have the face to stay in nameless town in the future. What about you? Bai Xiaoyun looked at him. I won't kneel to you. The immortal king shook his head with all his might. If he had to kneel here, he might as well kill him directly. Brother, the responsibility is all on me. The immortal king doesn't know anything. He just followed me here, the bearded man hurriedly said. He didn't dare to offend the immortal king. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to survive in nameless town in the future. You're not going to kneel, are you? Bai Xiaoyun's expression was stern as she swung out a sword chi. The immortal king's hair stood on end as he hurriedly activated the immortal power in his body to defend himself. Chapter 1644. However, how could he withstand Bai Xiaoyun's attack? Even though he was prepared, he was still sent flying by the immortal power and crashed into the wall. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and all his defenses dissipated in an instant. The bearded man knelt on the ground, his legs trembling, and he didn't dare to look back. He knew that he had kicked an iron plate today. Get out. Jiang Chen pointed at the door and said indifferently. Okay, I'll get out now. The bearded man immediately stood up as if he had received a special pardon. He cupped his hands at Jiang Chen and was about to leave. Wait, Bai Xiaoyun suddenly said. Lord Immortal King, is there anything else? The bearded man's entire body trembled. He revealed a smile that was even uglier than crying and turned to look at Bai Xiaoyun. I told you to get out, not to walk out. Don't you understand? Bai Xiaoyun flipped her hand and dissipated the long sword. Then, she crossed her arms and said, Get out, I'll get out. The bearded man didn't dare to say no. He hurriedly lay on the ground and rolled out of the door. Who would have thought that a celestial immortal would be protected by an immortal lord and immortal king? If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Fortunately, it was at night. Otherwise, if word got out, he wouldn't be able to survive in nameless town in the future. The bearded man rolled out of the room and rolled to the end of the corridor, disappearing around the corner. How are you going to deal with this immortal king? Bai Xiaoyun looked at the person in the corridor and asked Jiang Chen. You're an immortal king. Why are you following behind an immortal? Under the gaze of the few people, Jiang Chen walked to his side and squatted down to ask. I live in nameless town. I usually take on some missions to make a living. With Bai Xiaoyun here, the immortal king didn't dare to speak carelessly. A dignified immortal king is actually a bounty hunter here. How interesting. Hearing his words, Jiang Chen laughed. However, he vaguely felt that something was wrong. He raised his head and glanced at little apes standing at the side. He seemed to have heard this from him before. There's nothing I can do about it. I used to be an elder of a sect in the eastern region. Later on, I violated the sect's rules and escaped. I can only live here. The immortal king sighed. It had been hundreds of years since he said this, but until now, he still didn't dare to take a step out of the nameless town, afraid that the law enforcers of the sect would come looking for him. Oh? What sect? Jiang Chen was curious. During this period of time in the eastern region, he had some understanding of the sects in the eastern region. Thousand Harmony sect. The immortal king raised his head and saw that Jiangchen and Bai Xiaoyun were completely unfamiliar faces. Only then did he dare to tell the truth. Hearing this, Jiangchen and Bai Xiaoyun looked at each other. I have some old acquaintances with your great elder Su Qian. I don't know what sect rules you have violated. If it is serious, I may have to bring you back. Jiangchen held his forehead and said somewhat helplessly. He did not expect that things would be so coincidental. Big brother, I have lived in the nameless town for hundreds of years. I have nothing to do with the Thousand Harmony sect. Moreover, I was framed back then. I have to break the rules. The immortal king hurriedly begged for mercy. The Thousand Harmony sect was his current nightmare. If it weren't for someone asking, he wouldn't have mentioned it at all. What trap? Bai Xiaoyun asked in a gossipy manner. Back then, when our sect master just went into seclusion, the sect was divided into two factions. One faction was led by Great Elder Su Qian. He wanted the sect to continue to develop steadily until the sect master came out of seclusion. The other faction was the punishment elder of the sect. He wanted to usurp the position of sect master. At that time, I was subordinate to the punishment elder. I didn't expect him to dare to go against the sect. I unknowingly did something that hurt the sect, so after the incident, I hurriedly fled the sect and never returned. The immortal king sighed heavily. These words had been in his heart for hundreds of years. Now that he finally had the chance to say them, he felt very relaxed. What about the punishment elder? Thinking about how Elder Su Qian had helped him so much, Jiangchen was still quite concerned about the matters of the Thousand Harmony sect. I don't know. He might have escaped like me, but for hundreds of years, I've never heard of his whereabouts. Of course, it's also possible that he was secretly executed by the sect. The immortal king shook his head. All right, I choose to believe your words. Jiangchen pondered for a moment and said, Then can you not send me back to the sect? I already have no face to go back. Moreover, hundreds of years have passed, and the sect has already undergone earth-shattering changes. If I go back now, it's no different from sending me to my death. The immortal king raised his head and begged for mercy. You can continue to live here, but there is one thing. If I want to know about the situation here in the future, you must tell me the truth. Otherwise, I will tell Great Elder Su Qian about your matter. You know that with his strength, no matter where you escape to, he can find you. Jiangchen said with a faint smile. No problem, I promise you. Hearing Jiangchen's promise, the immortal king quickly agreed. Go. Don't tell anyone about what happened today. Jiangchen waved at him and returned to the room. After the immortal king left, Little Ape and Huafu also followed in. Master, I think we should tell Great Elder Su Qian about this matter. During the time we were in the eastern region, he took care of us a lot. By phone you took Hikari's hand and walked in front of Jiangchen and said softly, Phone you, do you think that with Grand Elder Su Qian's strength, he wouldn't know that he was here? Jiangchen shook his head, smiled, and said, He's an expert who isn't any weaker than the three immortal kings. Ah? Then why did he allow this person to escape from the sect for hundreds of years? By phone you didn't react for a moment. He should know, but he disdains to pursue the responsibility. Bai Xiaoyun continued. That's right. Moreover, we have offended a lot of people in the eastern region this time. If we only rely on the Qianhe sect, I'm afraid we don't know everything. If we let him go now, we will know some things about the eastern region in the future. People come and go in the nameless town. Who knows what kind of people are there? Jiangchen nodded and agreed with Bai Xiaoyun. It's my fault for not thinking it through. Bai Fengyu smiled embarrassedly. Let's rest for the night and return to the Kunlun Immortal Mountain tomorrow. Jiangchen waved his hand and didn't think too much about this matter. The earlier they went back, the earlier they could start cultivating. Only by increasing their strength could they have the opportunity to go to the unknown areas of the immortal world and find the whereabouts of their mother. Yes. Everyone nodded in unison. Hikari, you sleep with Fengyu. Jiangchen squatted down and touched the little girl's head. I know, master. Hikari smiled sweetly. Chapter 1645. Oh right, Feng Yu, before we leave tomorrow, take her to buy a few sets of clothes. Seeing that Hikari was still wearing those tattered clothes, Jiangchen handed Bai Fengyu a promissory note and said, "Okay, got it." Bai Fengyu accepted it and brought Hikari back to her room. The next day, after everyone woke up, they did not waste any time and immediately left the nameless town. Looking in the direction of the northern region, not far behind Jiangchen and the others, a figure was following behind them. If one looked carefully, they would be able to tell that this person was the young sect master of Tianlang Mountain, Kuiyu. However, his current situation was completely different from before. His entire aura was low. Every time he followed them, he would choose to hide in the shadows and observe. When he was in the nameless town, someone had discovered his figure, but they were all dealt with in the shortest amount of time. At this moment, Kuiyu was hiding in the forest, his pair of pitch-black eyes staring at Jiang Chen's back. After nearly a day, everyone returned to Kunlun's celestial mountain. In front of the mountain gate, a beautiful figure stood there. "Qingmu?" After seeing who it was, Jiang Chen asked in surprise, "Why are you here instead of staying in the 9th mountain?" Master guessed that you would come back today, so he specially asked me to welcome you here. He said that he was afraid that you would be beaten to death by those people in Kunlun's celestial mountain. Qingmu pursed her lips and smiled. The people she was talking about were naturally the group of people who had been tricked by Jiangchen. "How did Xianyu know that I would come back today?" Jiangchen raised his eyebrows at her. "How would I know about Master's matters? However, Martial Granduncle, I have to tell you that the first Mountain Lord told Master everything about you in the eastern region. You're probably going to be in trouble." Qingmu blinked and turned her head away, avoiding looking at Jiang Chen's gaze. Cough cough, so what if she knows? I didn't fool around. Jiang Chen coughed awkwardly. In this life, he did not dare to offend Xianyu. Otherwise, if she slapped him, his cultivation would be crippled and he would have to lie in bed for the rest of his life. "Where are they?" Xianyu pointed at the girls behind Jiang Chen. "Since when was it your turn to give me pointers?" Jiang Chen originally wanted to explain, but he suddenly realized that he was Qingmu's martial granduncle. How could he explain to her? Qingmu stuck out his tongue and walked straight into the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. Behind her, Huafu shrugged. With her sharp eyes, she could see that this girl had some feelings for Jiang Chen. However, due to her identity, she couldn't show it. After entering the 9th mountain, Jiang Chen arranged accommodations for them and hurried over to Xianyu's place. Looking at the beautiful figure in the room, Jiang Chen held the crystal amber he had prepared in advance in his hand and quietly walked over. When Jiang Chen got close to her, he could smell the faint fragrance coming from her body. Hence, he reached out and wrapped his arms around her slender waist, burying his head in her neck. "9th Mountain Lord, I missed you so much!" Xianyu originally wanted to question Jiang Chen, but after being touched like this, her entire body went numb. She turned around and used all her strength to push Jiang Chen away. Then she asked angrily, "I heard from the first Mountain Lord that you've caused a lot of trouble in the eastern region. It's all settled." Jiang Chen didn't want to bring these things to the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, so he casually said, "Nonsense, what's going on with the Black sect leader? Why would a sect from another region attack you?" Xianyu didn't believe Jiang Chen's words at all. In her opinion, Jiang Chen was a scumbag who didn't speak the truth. "It's a long story. I'll explain it to you when we have time in the future. But this time, I brought you something good." Jiang Chen opened his hand, revealing the shining glazed crystal amber in his palm. "I spent a lot of money to buy this gemstone from an auction. In the entire eastern region, there are less than 5 people who have it. Jiang Chen, have you been in the lower realm for too long that your brain is damaged?" Xianyu was touched. She was about to throw herself into Jiang Chen's arms and act like a spoiled child, but when she saw what Jiang Chen was holding in his hand, she lost all interest in him. She said, feeling both annoyed and amused. "What's wrong?" Jiang Chen was a little surprised. "What glazed crystal amber? This is just the most ordinary gemstone. I just injected some immortal energy into it. If you want, I can turn the entire ninth mountain into glazed crystal amber. Xian Yu laughed coldly. Jiang Chen's words had touched her, but what he did made him look like a fool. Pa! Maybe I'm confused. Jiang Chen slapped his forehead and sighed in his heart. As expected, this kind of low-level method could only win the favor of little girls. He couldn't fool someone like Xian Yu, who had seen the world. Qing Mu, don't listen. Come in. Jiang Chen looked at the door and said loudly. Master, Martial Granduncle, I'm not eavesdropping. I just want to see if you need me to do anything. Qing Mu lowered her head and came in. She didn't dare to look up at Xian Yu. This glazed crystal amber is for you. And these accessories, I specially brought them back for you. Jiang Chen directly placed the gemstone in Qing Mu's hand and poured out all the accessories from his storage ring into Qing Mu's hand. Looking at these shiny things, Qing Mu's face instantly turned red. She wanted them, but she knew the relationship between Jiang Chen and Xian Yu. For a moment, she was stunned on the spot, not knowing whether to refuse or take them away. Young master gave them to you. Just take them. Xian Yu saw that Qing Mu was uncomfortable, so she gently waved her jade-like hand and said, Thank you, Martial Granduncle. Thank you, master. Qing Mu couldn't help but burst into laughter. She held the gemstones and quickly left the room. She also closed the door tightly. Since you don't want to tell me about the Black Sect master, then tell me about the girls you brought back. What are their identities? I see that there's even a teenage girl. Your taste can't be so heavy, right? Hearing the sound of the door closing, Xian Yu couldn't help but ask Jiang Chen. The little girl is the disciple I just accepted. The one dressed in white with a transcendent aura is Bai Fingyu, my disciple who just ascended from the lower realms. The other one is Huafu, the eldest miss of the bathing phoenix race. Our relationship is very pure. Jiang Chen was somewhat helpless and could only explain. Really? Xian Yu blinked her eyes. Of course it's true. When have I ever lied to you? Jiang Chen sat on Xian Yu's bed and took the opportunity to touch her thigh a few times. That tender and smooth feeling caused Jiang Chen's mind to ripple, and he almost couldn't control himself. Lecture! Xian Yu seemed to have been electrocuted as she took a few steps back. Oh right, I came back this time because I have a serious matter to ask you. Jiang Chen coughed lightly and said. Chapter 1646. What's the matter? Xian Yu asked seriously. Do you know that there's an Emperor Qian Ji in the immortal world? Jiang Chen coughed lightly. I've heard of him, but I think he's an immortal emperor from a few thousand years ago. Xian Yu recalled carefully. After a while, she said, You went to the East Domain this time and entered the tomb of this immortal emperor. Could it be that you obtained some inheritance? Jiang Chen sighed and said, I did obtain a few immortal techniques. As for the inheritance, I guess you can say so. Thinking about the map that Emperor Qianji gave him, the figure of that woman appeared in Jiang Chen's mind. Even though it had been so long, he still felt as though he was electrocuted when he looked into her eyes. There are many immortal techniques in the ninth mountain. You should hurry up and raise your cultivation level. The immortal world now is completely different from when you were in it. If you want to regain your previous status, the Kunlun Immortal Mountain can only give you a small amount of help. Moreover, not all the mountain lords support you. Looking at Jiang Chen, Xian Yu couldn't help but speak her mind. Let's deal with the problem in front of us first. Jiang Chen waved his hand. The sect leader of the Black Sect? Xian Yu immediately understood his thoughts. Yes, I don't have any impression of this sect. Moreover, that person's cultivation level is probably not lower than the 3 immortal kings. He might even be higher. If I don't deal with this problem, I will be greatly restricted in the immortal world. Jiang Chen frowned. He didn't hide anything in front of Xian Yu. When the first mountain lord told me about this, he also told me that he had already sent out all the informants of the first mountain to help you find out more about this person. Xian Yu sat beside Jiang Chen. They probably won't be able to find out anything. Jiang Chen took the opportunity to pull Xian Yu into his arms. We're talking about something. Can you be more serious? Xian Yu's face turned red. She couldn't reject Jiang Chen's strong arms. However, she was afraid that things would get worse, so she could only remind him softly. There's nothing more serious than what I'm about to do. Jiang Chen revealed a cheeky smile. He reached out his hand and was about to grab Xian Yu's clothes. Who? Just as Xian Yu was about to close her eyes and endure, there was a sudden noise at the door. She hurriedly extricated herself from Jiang Chen's embrace. The Lord of the First Mountain knew that Jiang Chen had returned. Hence, he specially asked me to pay you a visit and invite you to the First Mountain to discuss some matters. An old voice sounded from the door. It was the elder of the First Mountain, Jian Yun. He was also the elder who had brought Jiang Chen to the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. Lil Jian, long time no see. Jiang Chen let go of Xian Yu and walked straight to the door. When he pushed the door open and saw the old man in front of him, he said with a smile, Wan! Jiang Chen, pay attention to your current status. You're a disciple who has been expelled from the 9th mountain. You'd better show me some respect. Jian Yun was so infuriated by Jiang Chen's words that he almost fainted. Okay, little sword. I'll be careful. Jiang Chen waved his hand and walked past him. The Lord of the 9th mountain, it's him. Jian Yun hurriedly looked at Xian Yu who was inside. He could accept being called Lil Jian by Qing Mu. However, Jiang Chen had just ascended from the lower world and was weak. If it wasn't for his previous status, he would have punched him the moment he called him Lil Jian. Lil Jian, what did the Lord of the First Mountain say? Xian Yu didn't care about this at all. He just wants you and Jiang Chen to make a trip there. Hearing Xian Yu's words, Jian Yun completely calmed down. When the three of them reached the peak of the 9th mountain, Jian Yun gently waved his hand. An immortal crane flew out from the clouds and landed on the peak of the mountain. Thinking about what happened when they went to fetch Jiang Chen, Jian Yun couldn't help but say, Jiang Chen, you're not allowed to hurt it this time. It's not easy for the First Mountain to nurture immortal cranes. If you hurt it again, I'm afraid the Lord of the First Mountain will not let you off easily. Okay. Jiang Chen relaxed his shoulders and sat cross-legged on the back of the immortal crane. A few minutes later, the immortal crane flapped its wings and flew towards the First Mountain. When it arrived at the First Mountain, many disciples raised their heads to take a look. Although Jiang Chen's reputation had long spread throughout the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, there were a total of 3,000 disciples in the First Mountain. Some of them had only heard of Jiang Chen, but had never seen him in person. Under the gaze of these people, the immortal crane slowly landed on the peak of the First Mountain. You're quite famous in our First Mountain. Looking at the disciples gathered at the foot of the mountain, Jian Yun glanced at Jiang Chen and said with a wry smile, I'm not interested in your First Mountain. Jiang Chen shook his head. He didn't want to see the Lord of the First Mountain all day long. I wonder how many people would want to enter the First Mountain. Hearing the disdain in Jiang Chen's voice, Jian Yun tried his best to save some face for the First Mountain. In a room on the peak of the mountain, the Lord of the First Mountain was sitting inside. The three of them walked in side by side. The few disciples who were originally standing inside immediately cupped their fists towards the Lord of the First Mountain and left. However, when they left the room, they raised their heads and sized up Jiang Chen. They really couldn't understand why a disciple who was kicked out of the 9th mountain would be so valued by their master. He even mobilized the intelligence hall of the First Mountain to investigate the whereabouts of a certain immortal king in the north and east regions. This was something that had never happened since they entered the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. Lord of the First Mountain, may I know why you called us here? Xian Yu changed her posture and walked towards the Lord of the First Mountain elegantly. She sat on the chair and asked, Of course it's about Jiang Chen. The Lord of the First Mountain glanced at Jiang Chen and said softly, I say, why did you say everything? Isn't this getting more and more troublesome? Jiang Chen walked towards her quickly and said softly. Originally, Jiang Chen didn't want to tell Xian Yu about this. Now that she had said everything, Jiang Chen was caught off guard. His previous plan was also disrupted. With your current strength, Are you able to solve these problems? The lord of the first mountain didn't care about Jiangchen at all. In a sense, she was Jiangchen's elder. When her child made a mistake, as a parent, she naturally had to take care of it. All right. I'll listen to you guys. Jiangchen spread out his hands and sat beside Xian Yu. Lord of the Ninth Mountain, I've already sent out everyone from the intelligence hall to investigate the whereabouts of the sect leader of the Black Sect. However, you should know that our Kunlun Immortal Mountain doesn't know much about the outer regions. From what I know, this person had already attacked Jiangchen a few times when he was in the east regions. If we don't deal with him in time, we don't know when he will suddenly attack and kill him. The lord of the first mountain looked at Jiangchen and said to Xian Yu, Then according to your plan, what should the ninth mountain do? Xian Yu didn't know much about this matter. Chapter 1647. Send out the intelligence hall of the ninth mountain to gather information like us. The first mountain master said without hesitation. No problem. Xian Yu agreed immediately. She was more anxious than the first mountain master when it came to Jiangchen's matters. Naturally, she would cooperate fully. And you, before this matter is settled, stay in the Kunlun Celestial Mountain obediently. Don't go anywhere. Understand? After Xian Yu agreed, the first mountain master looked at Jiangchen and ordered in a low voice. All right. I'll wait here. Jiangchen shrugged and did not say anything else. Who would have thought that just as Jiangchen agreed, Jian Yun walked in immediately. Under the first mountain master's signal, Jiangchen was asked to leave. Let's go, Jiangchen. I'll send you back. Jian Yun rolled his eyes and looked at Jiangchen, as if he was still angry about what happened before. Thank you, little Jian. Jiangchen smiled faintly and stepped onto the immortal crane. Jian Yun let out a long breath. If it were someone else, he would have already slapped him. But it was a pity that Jiangchen had a good relationship with the other mountain lords, and if he really attacked him, he would probably be driven out of the sect. After sending Jiangchen back to the ninth mountain, Jian Yun did not stay and immediately returned to the first mountain to deal with the intelligence hall. Sitting in the room, Jiangchen did not continue to think about the black sect leader. Instead, he chose to go into seclusion to cultivate. There were 7 to 8 immortal skills in the Immortal Emperor's tomb, and the fusion technique waiting for him. The sooner he raised his cultivation, the sooner he could find his mother. Moreover, Jiangchen could clearly feel that there was some kind of relationship between the Black Sect leader and the Black Sky Emperor. Along the way, relying on the protection of others would not allow him to reach the end. Only when he was strong enough would he have the ability to face these problems. With 7 or 8 immortal arts placed in front of him, Jiangchen calmed his mind. With the control of his mind, the contents of the books turned into golden light and floated into Jiangchen's mind. Faced with such a huge amount of knowledge, Jiangchen was naturally a little overwhelmed. Even his brows were slightly furrowed. While Jiangchen was in seclusion, the ninth mountain and the first mountain had already joined forces and mobilized nearly 200 disciples from their respective intelligence halls. They were scattered throughout the north region and the east region to investigate the whereabouts of the Black Sect leader. Little Ape and Huafu also took the opportunity to enter the ninth mountain and become disciples of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. However, when they made this request, Xian Yu was taken aback. A spiritual beast with the strength of an immortal lord would be placed in the ninth mountain. It was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. With such a cultivation level, it might even be able to become an elder in the 10th mountain. Time passed day by day. Other than Bai Xiaoyun occasionally going to Jiangchen's cultivation area to check on the situation, Mystic Moon clearly stated that no one was allowed to disturb him. Even Qingmu wasn't allowed to get close. In less than 7 days, many people suddenly gathered outside the gate of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. Who dares to trespass on the Kunlun Celestial Mountain? The first mountain master's cold voice rang out from the mountain fog. First mountain master, we've learned that Jiangchen has returned to the Kunlun Celestial Mountain after returning from the east region. This time, we're here to seek an explanation. Standing at the front of these people was the leader of the Horizontal Blade sect, Secretary Lu. Behind him were not only hundreds of disciples of the Horizontal Blade sect, but also the leader of the Withered Wood sect, Zhang Lai. When the tomb of the immortal emperor had appeared, they had sent Lu Jie and Zhang Lin, who were stronger in their respective sects, to see if they could take advantage of the situation. However, until now, not a single disciple from the two sects had returned. They had also learned from the other sects in the north region that their people had been ruthlessly tricked by Jiangqin in the tomb of the immortal emperor. They didn't dare to cause trouble in the Yin-Yang sect. Although the strength of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain was stronger, Jiangqin was, after all, a disciple who had been expelled. It was unlikely that the Kunlun Celestial Mountain would fall out with them because of a disciple who had been expelled. "Oh? What explanation do you want?" The tone of the first mountain master was as cold as usual. He didn't seem to be affected by their sudden visit. "According to the information we've gathered, when Jiangqin was in the tomb of the immortal emperor, he plotted to kill 2 elders of the Horizontal Blade sect and the Withered Wood sect. Even the disciples of our sects couldn't make it out alive. Shouldn't you give us an explanation for the hundreds of lives that were lost?" Secretary Lu stared at the mountain gate. He was very unhappy with the way the conversation was going. Since ancient times, every time the tomb of the immortal emperor appeared, it would cause disputes and bloody disasters. The losses of your 2 sects can only be attributed to your inferior skills. Now you dare to cause trouble in the Kunlun Celestial Mountain? Do you want to disappear completely from the north region? The first mountain master snorted and said indifferently. "This." Secretary Lu and Zhang Lai looked at each other. "Scram!" Another voice was heard from the mountain fog. Secretary Lu stared at the mountain gate of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. The anger in his heart continued to accumulate. However, he knew clearly how big the gap was between his sect and the other party. If they turned back today, everything would be settled. However, in the future, they would no longer have any face in the north region. Outsiders would say that they didn't dare to look for Sun Sheng of the Yin-Yang sect. However, they couldn't even deal with a disciple who was abandoned by the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. In the future, the Horizontal Blade sect would no longer be able to lift their heads in the north region. "Sect leader Lu, what do you think we should do?" Zhang Lai clenched his fist and asked softly. "It seems like the Kunlun Celestial Mountain doesn't intend to let him go. Let's just wait here. I don't believe that Jiangqin will never come out. If we go back now, wouldn't the south region laugh at the Withered Wood sect?" Secretary Lu stabbed the long spear in his hand into the ground and looked at the Celestial Mountain. "You're right. We'll be a laughingstock if we go back now. However, I don't understand. Jiangqin has already been chased out. Why is the Kunlun Celestial Mountain still tolerating him?" Zhang Lai nodded his head. Secretary Lu's suggestion was the best solution now. "Why do you care about this?" Secretary Lu sat at the entrance of the Celestial Mountain. Hundreds of people blocked the entrance of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. Many disciples who were entering and exiting the mountain didn't know what was going on. The last time it was so crowded was when Jiangqin returned. He was chased by the people of the Celestial Mountain for treasures. Seeing these disciples of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, Secretary Lu and Zhang Lai finally found an opportunity. They asked everyone in the sect to spread the news and tell them everything that Jiangqin had done. They also asked them one by one why the Kunlun Celestial Mountain would protect a disciple who had been kicked out. However, after the disciples of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain heard this, they didn't have much of a reaction. In their hearts, Jiangqin had been a swindler for a long time. The losses suffered by these 2 sects were not even as great as the losses suffered by the Kunlun Immortal Mountain when Jiangqin had left. Chapter 1648. The first mountain master did not take this matter to heart. Even if the Horizontal Blade sect and the Withered Wood sect were on the same side, they were just clowns to the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. As Secretary Lu and Zhang Lai continued to block the entrance, the intelligence hall of the first mountain and the 9th mountain received a very important piece of news. At this moment, in the main hall of the first mountain. Xian Yu, Qing Mu, and a few elders of the ninth mountain were all sitting there. Jian Yun, tell them the situation. The first mountain master sipped a cup of tea and said calmly. All right. Jian Yun stood up and bowed to the first mountain master. Then, he cupped his fists at Xian Yu and said, Everyone, after more than 10 days of investigation, we have received an important piece of information about the Black Sect. This sect in the outer region seems to have a branch sect in the north region. What? As soon as this was said, other than the first mountain master and Xian Yu, everyone else was shocked. One should know that the Kunlun Celestial Mountain had been in the north region for a very long time. They knew all the sects in the north region like the back of their hand. However, now that they suddenly knew that a sect was a branch sect of the Black Sect from the outer region, they started to doubt the information that they had received for a long time. This sect is the Black Cloud Sect at the border of the north region, the first mountain master added. Black Cloud Sect? Qing Mu was a little surprised. First mountain master. Qing Mu stood up and cupped his fists at the two of them. Then, he continued, 5 years ago, during the North Region meeting, I was the representative of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain and brought my disciples to participate. I once fought with an elder of the Black Cloud Sect. Their immortal skills and moves were not a problem. If they wanted to hide it, would you be able to discover it? Xian Yu rolled her eyes at him. Since ancient times, we have not had any contact with the outer region. Even the Black Sect is the first time we have heard of them. If this Black Cloud Sect is really a branch sect of the Black Sect, then we must eliminate them from the north region. The first mountain master's voice was cold and unquestionable. Don't be so anxious. Just as Xian Yu was about to agree, a graceful figure walked in. This person had a head full of thick brown hair and a voluptuous figure. Although she was a little plump, her plump figure was just right. Her pair of long legs without any excess fat attracted everyone's attention the moment she appeared. Even Jian Yun couldn't help but raise his head to take a look. Behind her, there were a few older people. Wei Yu, what are you doing here? Seeing the woman walk into the main hall, the first mountain chieftain frowned slightly. She did not want too many people to know about Jiangqin. Although the sixth mountain chieftain would definitely support him, the Kunlun Celestial Mountain did not only have the 3 mountain chieftains. I already know about Jiang Chen's situation. Why didn't you tell me? Wei Yu directly sat beside Xian Yu. There was some anger in her words. If it wasn't for the news of the Horizontal Blade Sect and the Withered Wood Sect blocking the entrance, she wouldn't have known about it. You've been in seclusion, so I didn't want to disturb you. Xian Yu sat to the side. Now that I've come out of seclusion, I can't ignore Jiang Chen's situation. Tell me, what have you found out? If you don't have any leads, I can bring the elders and disciples of the sixth mountain to the outer region and make the Black Sect disappear from the immortal world. Wei Yu gently smoothed her hair. Don't make trouble, the first mountain chieftain said in a deep voice. If you don't tell me the truth today, I won't leave. Wei Yu crossed her legs. The elders behind her also crossed their arms. Seeing her like this, the first mountain chieftain could only wave her hand and let Jian Yun repeat what he had just said. As Jian Yun spoke, Wei Yu's eyes gradually darkened. She realized that this matter was far more serious than she had thought. This time, Jiangqin might have really gotten into trouble. Is the Black Cloud Sect confirmed to be a subsect of the Black Sect? Wei Yu looked at the first mountain chieftain and asked. Based on the situation we have now, it should be. The first mountain chieftain nodded. Well said, I'll go and ask now. If they are really a sect from the outer region, I'll help the north region clean up these evil creatures. Wei Yu would not allow Jiangqin to be in danger. After saying this, she directly stood up and walked out of the main hall. What are you going to do? The first mountain chieftain quickly stopped her. Of course I'm going to solve the problem. Now that Jiangqin has been targeted by them, I've already solved them while you're here discussing. Wei Yu gently waved her hand. After she finished speaking, her figure had already disappeared from the main hall. Stop her! The first mountain chieftain was somewhat helpless. One of the reasons why she did not tell Wei Yu was that she was too easily agitated. Sometimes, she might ruin things. Qing Mu quickly ran out and blocked in front of the sixth mountain chieftain. Go back and tell Xian Yu that if she's willing to help, she'll immediately go to the Black Cloud sect with me. If she's not willing, after I've solved this matter, Jiangchen must bring us to the sixth mountain. I'm not at ease with him in your hands. Wei Yu looked at Qing Mu, who was blocking her, and said in a deep voice. Sixth mountain chieftain, the black sect leader might already be in the north region. Moreover, this person's strength is very strong. I'm afraid that he's not inferior to the three immortal kings. If we act rashly, I'm afraid that not only will we not be able to solve the problem, we might even complicate the situation. Don't forget that Zhou Kunlun is not here, and the 10th mountain chieftain is not in the mountain either. Xian Yu also chased out, grabbed Wei Yu's arm, and whispered. Then we'll let them continue to attack Jiangchen? Wei Yu was not a fool. She naturally understood these principles, but she was more concerned about Jiangchen's safety. Jiangchen is in seclusion. When he comes out, we'll tell him this news and see what he wants to do. Xian Yu sighed softly. He's the young master. We can't do these things behind his back. Xian Yu's gaze was firm as she stared at Wei Yu. All right. Then I'll wait for Jiangchen to come out of seclusion. But don't forget that his current cultivation is only at the 3rd level of the true immortal realm. He doesn't have the strength to fight back against an immortal king, or even an immortal monarch. Hearing Xian Yu's words, Wei Yu could only nod and agree. He's a celestial immortal. After he returned from the East region, he was already at the 2nd level of the celestial immortal realm. I reckon that after this seclusion, he'll be able to improve even more. At this point, a smile appeared on Xian Yu's face. It was a kind of pride. She believed that it wouldn't take long for Jiangchen to regain his footing in the immortal realm. You can't be. Seeing her expression, Wei Yu seemed to understand something. Chapter 1649. No, I'm keeping my distance from him. Xian Yu's pretty face turned red. That's good. He's now a disciple of the 9th mountain. If news about you spread, it'll be bad for the entire Kunlun celestial mountain. Wei Yu turned around and glanced into the main hall. When she saw the first mountain lord staring at her, she said faintly, You can discuss this matter with her. When the time comes, let me know the result. After saying this, Wei Yu quickly left with a few elders. Xian Yu watched Wei Yu disappear into the peak of the first mountain before returning to the main hall. This 6th mountain lord. The first mountain lord shook his head helplessly. After a discussion, they decided not to make a move for the time being. They would continue to inquire about the Black Cloud sect. As for how to deal with it, they would have to wait until Jiangchen came out of seclusion. In the secret chamber. Jiangchen had been in seclusion for a whole month. During this period, he had been absorbing the mysteries of the celestial techniques, trying to merge the different celestial powers in his body together. However, no matter what method he used, he could only merge 2 of them. My strength is still too weak. Jiangchen slowly opened his eyes. After gradually adapting to the darkness in front of him, he helplessly put away all the celestial techniques. In this month, his strength had only increased from the 2nd level of the Heaven Immortal Realm to the 3rd level of the Heaven Immortal Realm. These celestial techniques of different attributes had only been integrated into the first 2 moves. This was also thanks to the herbs that he had swallowed in the Immortal Emperor's tomb. Otherwise, without the opportunity, no matter how long he had been in seclusion, it would have been impossible for his cultivation to increase. After sitting on the bed for a while, Jiangchen pushed open the door to the secret chamber. 3rd level of the Heaven Immortal Realm, not bad. Hearing the movement behind her, Bai Xiaoyan turned around. After sensing that Jiangchen was emitting a stronger aura than before, she could not help but praise him. My cultivation has increased too slowly. Jiangchen shook his head and said helplessly. With this kind of strength, not to mention personally going to the unknown region to look for his mother, he probably didn't even have the qualifications to enter. Bai Xiaoyun patted Jiangchen's shoulder and comforted him. It's already very good. You were originally someone who ascended. In such a short period of time, you were able to advance from an immortal to a celestial immortal. Looking around, there aren't many people in the entire immortal world who can achieve such a speed like you. Perhaps in a few hundred years or a few thousand years, you can also become an immortal king like me. Yeah. Jiangchen shrugged. Oh, that's right. While you were in seclusion, the Horizontal Blade Sect and the Withered Wood Sect joined forces and went to the Kunlun Celestial Mountain to cause trouble for you. However, they were stopped by the first mountain lord outside the mountain gate. If I'm not mistaken, this group of people is probably still waiting for you at the mountain gate. Bai Xiaoyun suddenly thought of this matter and quickly told Jiang Chen. Let's go take a look. The corners of Jiang Chen's mouth curled up into a smile as he quickly rushed towards the foot of the mountain. Wait for me. Bai Xiaoyun only felt a blur in front of her, and Jiang Chen had already disappeared in front of her. She quickly activated the immortal force in her body and quickly followed behind. At the entrance of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, the Horizontal Blade Sect and the Withered Wood Sect were still waiting there. They knew that if they left, they would definitely become the laughingstock of the northern and southern regions. Instead of going back and being ridiculed and looked down upon, they would rather wait here. They believed that Jiang Chen would return sooner or later. Only 1 month had passed. Both Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai were a little impatient. If not for the fact that they didn't dare to offend the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, they would have rushed in directly and cut Jiang Chen into pieces. 2 sect leaders, I heard that you have been waiting for me here for a long time. May I know what's the matter? Jiang Chen flew down from the clouds. Jiang Chen? Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai immediately became alert. The two of them stood up and looked around. Finally, they saw Jiang Chen in the mountain gate. The strength of these 2 people is above Immortal Venerable. They can't attack you. Do you need me to deal with them? Bai Xiaoyun sensed the strength of the other party almost instantly. She lowered her head and asked Jiang Chen. No need. Jiang Chen smiled faintly and walked down the stone steps. Jiang Chen brat, according to the agreement, we can't hurt you. So please come back with us and hand over all the treasures you took from the tomb of the Immortal Emperor. Zhang Lai took a step forward and pointed at Jiang Chen and said loudly, Are you here to rob me or to avenge the deaths of your sect members? Jiang Chen laughed when he heard this. It doesn't matter why we are here. You have killed the elders and hundreds of disciples of our Withered Wood sect. Even if there is the agreement of 2 realms and the agreement of 1,000 years, I can still deal with you. Secretary Liu waved his hand and 2 immortal monarchs stood out from behind him. It seems like you don't know me very well. Looking at these people, Jiang Chen laughed. Soon after, he raised his hand and snapped his fingers. His voice drifted out. Shortly after, a few powerful auras came out from the peak of the 9th mountain. In the blink of an eye, 7 to 8 people appeared on both sides of Jiang Chen and Bai Xiaoyun. And these people were actually all immortal kings. How is this possible? This scene stunned Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai. They only knew that Jiang Chen was accompanied by an immortal king when they were in the tomb of the Immortal Emperor. However, they didn't expect that Jiang Chen had more than 1 immortal king with him. Alliance leader, these people have been blocking the entrance of the mountain since a month ago. If it wasn't for the fact that the first mountain lord didn't allow us to deal with them, we would have crippled them long ago. An immortal king who was close to Jiang Chen pointed at Secretary Liu and said with a cold smile, Thank you for your hard work. Jiang Chen didn't say much. As soon as he finished speaking, a few immortal kings from the overseas Immortal Mountain immediately rushed out and killed their way into the Horizontal Blade Sect and Withered Wood Sect. Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai had brought all the experts from their families. There were immortal monarchs, immortal primes, and even 3 sub-immortal kings. However, their strength was nothing in front of the real immortal kings from the overseas Immortal Mountain. In an instant, screams of agony could be heard. Those immortal monarchs and immortal primes were killed the moment they started fighting. The 3 sub-immortal kings could only block them for a short while. They couldn't withstand the combined attacks of the 7 to 8 immortal kings from the overseas Immortal Mountain and fell to the ground with serious injuries. In less than 10 minutes, the group of people who were still clamoring were either dead or injured. Even Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai suffered serious injuries. They could barely stand up with the help of their disciples. Now, do you still want to ask me for treasures? Jiangchen put his hands on his hips and looked at them coldly. No, no! Secretary Liu waved his hands and didn't dare to raise his head to look at Jiangchen anymore. Chapter 1650. All the information they had learned about Jiangchen was that he was protected by an immortal king. That was why they had dared to come to Jiangchen's house to collect the debt after gathering 3 quasi-immortal kings. However, to their surprise, Jiangchen not only had Bai Shaoyun by his side, but also 7 or 8 genuine immortal kings. Since you don't want it, then get lost. If I see you looking for trouble in the future, don't blame me for making the Withered Wood sect and the Horizontal Blade sect disappear from the northern region. Jiangchen waved his hand impatiently. Understood, understood. Secretary Liu and Zhang Lai didn't dare to hesitate any longer. They hurriedly brought the disciples who could still move and left. As for those who were killed, they directly threw them here. They were afraid that if they left any slower, Jiangchen would go back on his words and they might even die here. Should we chase after them and kill them? A few immortal kings from the overseas Immortal Mountains stood in front of Jiangchen. No need, let them go. Jiangchen glanced at them and suddenly said, You guys should return to the overseas Immortal Mountains first. I don't need your protection here. Ah? Alliance leader, why? They didn't expect Jiangchen to suddenly say this. There's no reason. If I tell you to go back, then go back. Jiangchen frowned slightly and didn't tell them the truth. That was that the sect leader of the Black Sect was trying his best to make a move on him. It was hard to guarantee that this person wouldn't treat the overseas Immortal Mountains as his target. And with these immortal kings by his side, the overseas Immortal Mountains naturally had less protection. The immortal kings looked at each other, unable to guess the reason why Jiangchen did this. But since Jiangchen had already said it, they couldn't object. They could only nod and agree. Then Alliance leader, when shall we go back? The immortal king asked. Let's do it now. After you go back, stay in the overseas Immortal Mountain obediently. No one is allowed to go out without my permission. Otherwise, if I learn about it, I will definitely hold him accountable for his wrongdoings. Jiangchen said in a deep voice. Alliance leader, take care of yourself. Hearing Jiangchen's words, they didn't dare to stay any longer. After cupping their hands to Jiangchen and Bai Shaoyun, they instantly left Kunlun Mountain. Looking at the light in the air, Bai Shaoyun couldn't help but sigh. Bai Shaoyun shook her head and said in a low voice, With them gone, you'll have one less protection. I don't have a choice. If they stay with me, I can't guarantee what the outcome will be once the Black Sect leader makes a move on the overseas Immortal Mountain. Jiangchen frowned slightly. He didn't hide anything from Bai Shaoyun. I suddenly recalled that the first Mountain Lord and the 9th Mountain Lord seemed to have discussed how to deal with him. Even the 6th Mountain Lord seemed to have appeared. Looking at the disciples of the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, Bai Shaoyun approached Jiangchen and whispered, Wei Yu? Jiangchen was a little surprised. Ever since he ascended to the immortal realm, he had never seen Wei Yu. After such a long time, he wondered if her figure was still as plump and bouncy as before. Don't tell me that all the mountain lords of the Kunlun Immortal Mountain are female? Bai Shaoyun was a little surprised. You can ask them yourself. Jiangchen didn't answer. He turned and walked into the Immortal Mountain. At the foot of the 9th mountain, Jiangchen was just about to go up the mountain to ask Xianyu if she had found out anything when a cold wind swept over. Bai Shaoyun immediately became vigilant and shielded Jiangchen behind her. However, Jiangchen felt a sense of familiarity. After the cold wind dissipated, Wei Yu stood in front of Jiangchen. She put her hands on her hips and said in a displeased tone, What? After not seeing me for so long, you actually want to attack me? Seeing Wei Yu, Jiangchen hurriedly whispered to Bai Shaoyun, Eldest senior brother, let's stop. She's the 6th Mountain Lord. Bai Xiaoyun let down her guard. After returning to the immortal realm, you actually didn't take the initiative to visit me. You're getting bolder and bolder. Wei Yu's clear and beautiful eyes stared at Jiang Chen. Although there was a hint of indignation in her words, there was also a hint of coquettishness. Ahem, I was too busy and didn't have time to visit you. Jiang Chen touched his nose and replied awkwardly. But why are you here? I can go anywhere in the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. Wei Yu put her hands behind her back. Just this movement made her chest even more perky, and even her clothes couldn't support it. F***ck. Bai Xiaoyun swallowed her saliva and quickly turned her head away, afraid that she would embarrass herself in front of Jiang Chen. Come with me. Wei Yu rolled her eyes at Bai Xiaoyun and turned to look at Jiang Chen. Other than Jiang Chen, she was not interested in any other man in the immortal realm. Of course, those men were not worth her bullying. You go back to the 9th mountain first. Jiang Chen turned his head and whispered to Bai Xiaoyun. Then, before Bai Xiaoyun could answer, Jiang Chen was lifted into the air by a force and flew towards the 6th peak at high speed. TSK, what's the difference between this and kidnapping? Looking at Jiang Chen's figure in midair, Bai Xiaoyun couldn't help but smack her lips and sigh. However, if he could be kidnapped by such a voluptuous woman, he would be convinced. Seeing the two figures disappear into the mountain, Bai Xiaoyun sighed and lamented why she didn't have such good fortune. On the 6th mountain, Jiang Chen was thrown onto the bed in the room by Wei Yu. With a wave of her delicate hand, the door of the room was slammed shut. Jiang Chen was like a little chick, curled up on the bed and shivering. Tell me, why didn't you tell me when you returned to the immortal realm? If I hadn't heard the news from those people who blocked the mountain gate, I'm afraid I would still be in the dark. Wei Yu stretched out her hand and a long whip appeared in her hand. With a slight movement of her arm, the whip cracked. Didn't you appear before? Jiang Chen asked weakly. Who knew it was you? Wei Yu raised her eyebrows. When Jiang Chen almost emptied the Kunlun mountain, she only went out to show her face. She didn't even see Jiang Chen's appearance. Moreover, she didn't expect that this Jiang Chen was the Jiang Chen she had been thinking about day and night. But in fact, Wei Yu's guess was not wrong. After all, Jiang Chen had disappeared from the immortal realm for several generations. I'm back this time. Jiang Chen wiped the cold sweat on his head and said in a flattering manner. But you, instead of greeting me, you treat me like this. Aren't you a little unreasonable? You almost emptied the 9th mountain. If you were allowed to stay in the Kunlun mountain for a while longer, I'm afraid that the 6th mountain would be emptied too, right? Wei Yu snorted coldly. I can return the 6th mountain to you. Looking at the whip in Wei Yu's hand, Jiang Chen instantly understood a principle. A wise man submits to circumstances. Chapter 1651. At least you know what's good for you. Wei Yu snorted coldly. If anyone else dared to do this, she would make that person disappear from the immortal realm. However, it was Jiang Chen who took the celestial jade. Heroine, I'll return the celestial jade to you. Can you spare my life? Jiang Chen stared at the whip in Wei Yu's hand. When he thought about how this thing was about to hit his body and tear his flesh apart, Jiang Chen felt cold sweat trickling down his back. Sure, but since you've been expelled from the 9th mountain, why don't you come to the 6th mountain? I'll give you the best cultivation resources and guarantee that you'll be promoted from a celestial immortal to a celestial supremacy in a very short time. Wei Yu said softly as she put away the whip. No. I'm doing pretty well in the 9th mountain. Upon hearing this, Jiang Chen quickly shook his head and refused. What a joke! He ate and drank well in the 9th mountain and lived a carefree life. If he really went to the 6th mountain and had to face Wei Yu every day, he would probably be beaten to death by her whip in less than a week. Alright, since you said so, I won't force you to stay. However, I have to remind you that among the 9 mountain lords of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, only I and the 1st mountain lord support you. The other mountain lords don't have a good impression of you. Moreover, you've benefited a lot from them before. So you should know what I mean, right? Wei Yu also knew that Jiang Chen would not come to her. After all, a few centuries ago, she was the only one who could suppress him in the entire Kunlun Celestial Mountain. It doesn't matter. I won't ask for their help. Jiang Chen shrugged, looking fearless. Among all his opponents, the Immortal King level was still a threat except for the sect leader of the Black Sect. Zhou Wenli and Zhou Yuanxing both died in the Immortal Emperor tomb. Other than that, there were some celestial supremacies and celestial dukes. With Bai Xiaoyun and the others around, it was impossible for them to hurt him. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the door. Jian Yun knocked on the door and said in a deep voice, "The 6th Mountain Lord and 1st Mountain Lord have summoned all the Mountain Lords to the main hall for a meeting." Jiang Chen smiled when he heard the voice. He shouted at the top of his voice, "Lil Jian, you're not an outsider. Come on in." Small Sword, Jiang Chen, an expelled disciple from the 9th Mountain, actually dared to refer to an elder from the 1st Mountain as Little Sword. For a moment, many disciples of the 6th Mountain began to whisper among themselves. When they saw Jian Yun, they had to respectfully address him as Elder Jian. "This son of a bitch." Jian Yun's eyes darkened as he cursed in his heart. "This son of a bitch Jiang Chen. Not only did he call me that, he even dared to call me that in front of so many disciples." However, these thoughts were just thoughts. Since the 9th Mountain Lord had been protecting Jiang Chen, Jian Yun calmed himself down, pushed open the door, and walked in. However, when he saw Jiang Chen sitting on the main bed of the 6th Mountain, he was shocked. "Ahem, Elder Jian, may I know why the 1st Mountain Lord has summoned us?" Wei Yu's face turned red as she coughed twice and asked softly. "The 6th Mountain Lord is here because of Jiang Chen. Now that the other Mountain Lords of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain know about this, they are worried that it might bring trouble to the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, so they are here to ask about it." Jian Yun did not hesitate as he retracted his gaze from Jiang Chen and cupped his hands towards Wei Yu. What a joke. Even the 3 great immortal kings are afraid of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. How can a mere black sect leader make them feel like they are facing a great enemy? Wei Yu laughed coldly. "The 6th Mountain Lord is not here because of this matter. It's because Jiang Chen is too good at causing trouble." Jian Yun spoke the truth. However, after knowing that Jiang Chen might have a good relationship with the 6th Mountain Lord, his tone softened. Wei Yu turned to look at Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen hurriedly climbed down from the bed and tidied up his messy clothes. "Elder Jian, please inform the other Mountain Lords. Jiang Chen and I will be there soon." Wei Yu cupped her hands towards Jian Yun. "Yes, 6th Mountain Lord." Jian Yun lowered his head and left. He was no longer angry at Jiang Chen for calling him Little Jian. Instead, he was filled with endless fantasies about the relationship between Jiang Chen and the 6th Mountain Lord. After Jian Yun left, Wei Yu snorted coldly. "Tell me, how many things are you hiding from me? How much trouble have you caused after returning to the immortal realm?" Wei Yu looked at Jiang Chen and her voice was much colder. She originally thought that Jiang Chen would keep a low profile after returning this time, but she did not expect that he could force the 9 Mountain Lords to gather again in such a short time with only the strength of a celestial immortal. "Not much." Jiang Chen touched his nose. Even if you don't tell me, I'll know later. You'd better pray that you didn't cause too much trouble. Otherwise, I'll seal you in the 6th Mountain." Wei Yu swung her sleeves and strode outside. Jiang Chen scratched his head and could only follow. Sitting on the blue one outside, the two turned into a ball of flowing light and sped away from the 6th Mountain. A moment later, the blue one stopped at the peak of the 1st Mountain. At this time, many disciples from the other mountains had gathered at the peak. When they saw that Jiang Chen and the 6th Mountain Lord had arrived at the same time, they first cupped their hands towards Wei Yu and then coldly looked at Jiang Chen. Their eyes were filled with contempt, disdain, and of course, envy. To be so close to the Mountain Lords was something they had dreamed of their entire lives. "If looks could kill, I'm afraid you'd be lying in a pool of blood now." Wei Yu glanced around. When she saw that these people were looking at Jiang Chen, She covered her mouth and couldn't help but whisper to Jiangchen. Unfortunately, I can't. Jiangchen shrugged. When they entered the main hall, other than Xian Yu, the other mountain lords were all sitting inside. When they saw Jiangchen enter, everyone's eyes instantly focused on him. Jiangchen, you still have the face to come back. When will we return the immortal jades and Wuji stones from the third mountain? You dog, if it weren't for the first mountain lord and the ninth mountain lord, would you still be alive and standing here? As soon as Jiangchen entered, a few mountain lords stood up and pointed at his nose and scolded him loudly. The immortal jades and Wuji stones that were taken away from the overseas immortal mountain some time ago were almost all of the treasures in their mountain sections. When Jiangchen left with them, they wanted to send their disciples to get them back. However, because of the first mountain lord and the ninth mountain lord, they chose to let Jiangchen go. However, now that Jiangchen had returned to the Kunlun immortal mountain and even caused trouble, he needed their help. This made the mountain lords very unhappy. One had to know that ever since Jiangchen left, they had been living frugally. Chapter 1652. Don't quarrel. We're here today to discuss countermeasures, not to listen to you quarrel. The first mountain frowned. She knew that this would happen, but she didn't expect these mountain lords to say such nasty words the moment they saw Jiangchen. That's right. The ninth mountain can repay what Jiangchen owes you. If you don't want to discuss it, you can leave now. No one will stop you. A clear voice sounded from outside. Xianyu walked in slowly with Qing Mu, her gaze constantly sweeping across the mountain lords. The sixth mountain can also repay him. Wei Yu naturally didn't want to be at a disadvantage. Hearing this, the mountain lords immediately lost their temper. Xian Yu, Wei Yu, and the first mountain lord were protecting Jiangchen. If they continued, they would hurt the harmony of Kunlun's celestial mountain. This was something no one wanted to see. However, although they could get compensation, Jiangchen's actions really made them gnash their teeth in hatred. They were not convinced that they would help just like that. Everyone, according to the information I've gathered, not only did Jiangchen offend a sect from another region, but he even offended immortal King Xianjun. The two sword-bearing children under immortal King Xianjun died directly or indirectly in his hands. Although Kunlun's celestial mountain isn't afraid of Xianjun, we don't have to go against Xianjun because of Jiangchen. The mountain lords of the third and seventh mountains stood out and said one after another. The first mountain lord's expression didn't change. She already knew about this in front of the immortal emperor's tomb, but Xian Yu and Wei Yu didn't. The two of them turned their heads and looked at Jiangchen with fierce eyes, as if they wanted to drag Jiangchen down and beat him up. Xianjun is an immortal king, but due to the promise of the two realms and the promise of 1,000 years, he can't directly attack Jiangchen. Naturally, there's no need to worry about this. If you're still obsessed with Jiangchen's mistakes, please leave my hall now. The first mountain lord raised her head and said calmly. However, her tone was serious and heavy, and she didn't give them any chance to refute. With that said, the mountain lords of the third and seventh mountains sat down. Right now, we have already investigated. The Black Cloud sect is a subordinate sect of the Black sect in the outer region. If we continue to allow this sect to survive in the northern region, there will definitely be trouble in the future. Thus, before they become useless, I suggest that we directly take action and make them completely disappear from the northern region. Seeing that no one spoke, the first mountain master continued speaking. I agree. I agree too. Xian Yu and Wei Yu said one after another. The other mountain chieftains weren't fools. They knew that the first mountain chieftain was just making an official statement. His true intention was to help Jiangchen solve his problem. If they didn't help, it was very likely that it would cause internal strife among the Kunlun celestial mountains. But if they helped, even if Xian Yu and Wei Yu agreed to compensate them, they still couldn't swallow their anger. As he hesitated, the eighth mountain lord stood up. He was a very sturdy middle-aged man. His arms were wrapped in thick linen, and his muscles were as strong as a celestial ox. One look and one could tell that he was a master of physical skills. The first mountain chieftain is right. But if you want us to accept Jiangchen so easily, it's a little too easy. How about this? If he can withstand 10 moves from the eldest disciple of the 8th mountain, we will accept him unconditionally. But if he can't, the 3 mountain sects can do it if you want. Don't drag us down with you. The 8th mountain lord looked at Jiangchen and said in a provocative manner, Yanju, aren't you going a little too far? As soon as he finished speaking, Xian Yu's expression changed slightly. One should know that the eldest disciple of the 8th mountain, Zhou Tai, was a 3rd-level immortal venerable. He was one of the top disciples in the Kunlun Celestial Mountain and even had the qualifications to become an elder of the 8th mountain. Jiangchen was only a 3rd-level celestial immortal. Even if it didn't violate the agreement between the two sects, it was still extremely unfair. I agree. This way, we will know if Jiangchen is worthy of the protection of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain. That's right. 3 mountain chieftains, we have already made a concession. Please do the same. Behind him, the 3rd and 7th mountain chieftains stood up again. Just as Xian Yu was about to speak up for Jiangchen. Since all the mountain chieftains want to see what I, Jiangchen, am capable of, I accept the challenge. However, I have a request. If I can withstand 10 moves, you don't have to return the immortal jades and Wuji stones. What do you think? Jiangchen stood in the middle of the hall and said with a faint smile. Are you crazy? That Zhou Tai is in the 3rd tier of the immortal venerable realm, and he has practiced the extreme power fist method of the 8th mountain to perfection. He is strong enough to fight against someone in the 5th or 6th tier of the immortal venerable realm. With your strength, I'm afraid you won't even last 1 round, let alone 10 rounds. Wei Yu said to Jiangchen in a low voice. If I run away, I'm afraid it won't be enough to convince everyone. Jiangchen said softly with a smile. All right, then it's settled. Zhou Tai, come and fight with Jiangchen of the 9th mountain. Yanju laughed loudly and stood up to wave his hand. Instantly, a young man with a similarly strong build walked in. As soon as he entered, his gaze fell on Jiangchen and he sneered with disdain. The 1st mountain chieftain had no choice but to clench his hand. The chairs of the other mountain chieftains quickly moved back. Even Qingmu, Jian Yun, and the others were pulled back by the force, making way for the center of the hall. Kid, seeing that we're both disciples of the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, I'll spare your life within 10 moves. Zhou Tai faced Jiangchen head-on. As he moved his legs, the sound of bones twisting could be heard. Waves of terrifying pressure instantly swept through the entire hall. Xian Yu and Wei Yu broke out in cold sweat for Jiangchen. The 1st mountain chieftain looked calm on the surface, but he had secretly mobilized his immortal power, ready to rescue Jiangchen at any time. If something happened to Jiangchen here, she would not be able to explain it to Wan Chen. 1st mountain chieftain, Jiangchen has already agreed. Do you still want to break the rules? Feeling the faint fluctuation of immortal power from the 1st mountain chieftain, the 2nd mountain chieftain sneered and said, This has nothing to do with you. The 1st mountain chieftain snorted. Under Zhou Tai's terrifying pressure, Jiangchen gradually looked at him seriously. He could clearly feel that this person's strength was much stronger than Ku Shan of Mount Tianlang. Kid, you're only a level 3 heaven immortal. It's not too late to beg for mercy. Zhou Tai clenched his fist. Among the immortal venerables he had fought before, no one could withstand his extreme fist technique. With a full blow, Jiangchen would disappear without a trace in an instant. Chapter 1653. I'm sorry, I've never said the word beg for mercy. Jiangchen looked straight at him. His body was gradually surrounded by light and dark immortal qi. Just like Emperor Qianji in the enchantment, it formed a circle of light. The 2 immortal qi of different attributes fused together. This was what Jiangchen had comprehended from the fusion method when he was in seclusion. Unfortunately, he could only fuse 2 attributes now. Light attribute immortal qi, dark attribute immortal qi? Sensing the fluctuation of Jiangchen's immortal qi and seeing the 2 colors, one white and one black, everyone present was a little shocked. Logically speaking, the light and dark attributes should not exist in a person's body. But now, Jiang Chen had done it. This made them very shocked. Even Xian Yu and Wei Yu were very surprised. However, although they were surprised, they did not say anything. Those who had ascended from the lower realm were definitely not ordinary people. This only proved that Jiang Chen was a little different from other cultivators. It did not prove anything else. You have some skills, but unfortunately, all tricks are useless in the face of strength. Zhou Tai was obviously a little shocked, but he quickly calmed down. As his immortal qi gradually gathered on his fist, the illusion of a tiger was revealed and gradually became clear. Tiger roaring divine fist! The moment the tiger head condensed, Zhou Tai did not hesitate and directly bombarded Jiang Chen. This was the fifth move of the extreme strength fist technique, and also Zhou Tai's proudest move. In the past, when he trained with Yang Zhu, he had beaten Yang Zhu 2 steps back with this move. Although it was a sneak attack and Yang Zhu did not fight back, it was enough to prove the power. After he shouted, the whole hall was suddenly filled with a gust of wind. His whole body swept toward Jiang Chen at an extremely fast speed. The sound of the sonic boom was constantly whistling in the ear. Even the space where the tiger head passed seemed to be torn apart. Everyone was shocked. They thought that Jiang Chen would definitely not be able to take it, and would even be seriously injured. Mystic Moon and the other two could no longer hold themselves back and wanted to make a move. However, when the fist was about to reach Jiang Chen's hands, which were hidden in his sleeves, moved slightly. Several Midra appeared. A giant tree lifted the plank up and started to grow rapidly. It didn't stop until it reached the roof of the hall. Boom! Zhou Tai's fist hit the tree trunk without any fancy moves. Suddenly, the tree trunk cracked inch by inch. It held on for less than a breath of time before it completely exploded, directly smashing towards Jiang Chen's face. There's even wood elemental immortal energy! Zhou Tai's face was somewhat distorted. At this moment, he no longer intended to hold back. Given enough time to grow, he was afraid that his title as the #1 immortal venerable in the Kunlun Immortal Mountain would soon be gone. Jiang Chen didn't even blink. Just as the tiger head was about to swallow him, a new seal was formed. Dark Heaven Rippling Barrier, Jiang Chen said in a low voice. Immediately after, a black fog erupted from his body and instantly swallowed the two of them. The 9 mountain lords stared intently. They tried to sense the situation inside, but they could only sense the specific location of Jiang Chen and Zhou Tai. They couldn't sense anything else. Just as they were concentrating, 3 streams of light swept out from the 9th mountain and rushed towards the 1st mountain at an extremely fast speed. They arrived almost in the blink of an eye. Bam! The door of the hall was kicked open. 3 figures quickly walked in under the sunlight. Where's Jiang Chen? Bai Xiaoyun held Hikari in one hand and a white long sword in the other. She narrowed her eyes and scanned the people inside. Beside him, Little Ape and Huofu stood. 1 immortal king and 2 immortal monarchs' cultivation immediately erupted in the hall. After the 3 of them sensed Jiang Chen's immortal power fluctuation, they realized that there might be danger and immediately rushed here. Bai Xiaoyun was even prepared to fight them to the death. He's inside. Don't worry. With us in the hall, there won't be any problems. Xian Yu's figure flashed and arrived in front of Bai Xiaoyun. Lord of the 9th mountain, Jiang Chen is now the Lord of the Intelligence Pavilion. He is also the leader of the Overseas Immortal Mountain Alliance. If anything happens to him in the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, I don't think we'll rest until one of us dies. Bai Xiaoyun took a deep breath and stared at the black fog with bloodshot eyes. Kunlun might not be afraid of the 3 immortal kings, but if the White Robe Immortal King was here, together with the experts of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion and the Overseas Immortal Mountain Alliance, it was enough to make Kunlun suffer. Moreover, the moment he sensed Jiang Chen's energy fluctuation, he set up a barrier in Bai Fingyu's room, afraid that Bai Fingyu would do something impulsive. Don't worry. Xian Yu glanced at Bai Xiaoyun. She was not much less worried than the former. Within the black fog, Zhou Tai was already locked in the barrier by Jiang Chen. His fist missed, and he took a few steps forward. When he turned back and was about to condense his immortal energy to use the sixth move of the extreme strength fist technique, his body suddenly tensed up. What kind of barrier is this? Zhou Tai lowered his head and realized that he was already locked to the wooden stake. No matter how he struggled, the ropes would not budge. Even his immortal energy was suppressed. I sensed it when I advanced to the heavenly immortal stage, Jiangqin casually said. This sentence almost made Zhou Tai spit out a mouthful of blood. When he advanced to the heavenly immortal stage, he did not even sense a fart. Thus he angrily said, Brat, your barrier won't be able to trap me for long. When I break free, it will be the time of your death. Oh? Is that so? Standing in the black fog, Jiangqin raised his head and smiled coldly. As he spoke, Jiangqin gradually condensed a radiant long sword in his hand. When this long sword appeared, the black fog around him was dispersed. The blade of the driving light. Jiangqin narrowed his eyes. This celestial art was the light attribute celestial art left by the immortal emperor in the treasure pavilion. Jiangqin had roughly comprehended it when he was in seclusion. Although he had not reached the level of great success, he could barely use it with his current cultivation. And this time, it was the first time that Jiangqin used the fusion technique. He fused the power of darkness and light attributes to fight. Fancy moves. With your cultivation, you can only trap me for a while. Seeing Jiangqin walking towards him, Zhou Tai could not help but mock him. At the same time, he was still trying to break free. Unfortunately, although he was enjoying himself, the ropes did not loosen at all. Poof! Walking in front of him, Jiangqin directly pierced his long sword into his shoulder. Hiss! This pain made Zhou Tai immediately shiver. However, after the long sword was pierced, another one appeared in Jiangqin's hand. This time, Jiangqin held it and pierced it into his other shoulder. Chapter 1654. Time passed. Long swords continued to appear in Jiangqin's hands. His chest. His abdomen. His waist. His legs. Even his feet were pierced through by the long swords. Zhou Tai could no longer feel pain. The only thing he could feel was his life draining away. In the end, there was only panic in his eyes. He knew that he had fallen into Jiangqin's hands. Just as he gave up and was about to stop struggling, the black fog dissipated. The light swords in his body also dissipated. Plop! Zhou Tai fell heavily on the wooden plank. His eyes were wide open and filled with fear. Even his body was trembling uncontrollably. On the other side, Jiangqin's immortal power had already dissipated. He knelt on one knee and panted heavily. His eyes were fixed on Zhou Tai. Jiangqin! Seeing this, Bai Xiaoyun dashed over immediately to help Jiangqin to his feet. The first mountain lord, who was about to come down, sat down again as soon as he lifted his butt. With Bai Xiaoyun, an immortal king, there should be no problem. Zhou Tai! Yan Zhu also rushed over and helped Zhou Tai up. He carefully checked his injuries. Eldest senior brother, I'm fine. It's just that I've used up a lot of immortal power. Just help me up, Jiangqin said weakly as he put his hand on Bai Xiaoyun's arm. With his current strength, it was difficult to defeat such a powerful immortal supremacy. Moreover, Zhou Tai was an immortal supremacy who had cultivated immortal techniques to the extreme. Bai Xiaoyun agreed and helped Jiangqin up. Other than the 8th Mountain Lord, the other Mountain Lords were all shocked. They found it hard to believe that Jiangqin had defeated Zhou Tai, who was a 3rd-level immortal supremacy, with his cultivation base of a 3rd-level heaven immortal. Even though they did not know what had happened in the black fog barrier, the truth was right in front of them. Zhou Tai, how are you? Yang Zhu was worried. He did not expect such a thing to happen. However, he was most concerned about his disciples' injuries. I'm afraid I'll be a cripple in the future. Zhou Tai couldn't even speak clearly. Men, bring Zhou Tai back to rest. Bring out all the top medicinal pills and herbs in the 8th mountain. Yang Zhu shouted at the door. A few disciples of the 8th mountain quickly ran in and carried him away. Yang Ju turned around and stared at Jiang Qin. 8th mountain lord, according to the bet, I've defeated Zhou Tai. Not only do you have to support me unconditionally, you don't have to return the immortal jades and Wuji stones, right? Jiang Qin gave him a very bright smile, but his pale face showed that his situation was not very good. I admit defeat. The 8th mountain lord waved his sleeves, and his entire body transformed into a stream of light as he left the main hall. He wanted to check on his disciples' condition, and he was not in the mood to stay here. Following the shocked gazes of the other mountain chieftains, the first mountain chieftain slowly sucked in a breath of cold air and said calmly, Today's meeting ends here. 7 days later, gather at my place again to discuss how to solve this problem. All right. The other mountain chieftains stood up and glanced at Jiang Qin at the same time, then left one after another. After they left the main hall, Xian Yu and the other two could not hold it in any longer. They walked up to Jiang Qin. Brat, we can handle these mountain chieftains. Since when did we need you to stand out? The first mountain chieftain grabbed Jiang Qin's wrist and injected a strand of pure immortal energy into him. At the same time, he frowned and reprimanded him. If you have the immortal jades and Wuji stones that you return to them, why don't you just give them to me? Jiang Qin smiled weakly and said something that made their faces darken. If it weren't for your injuries, I would teach you a lesson right now. Xian Yu pointed at Jiang Qin's nose and reprimanded him. Before Jiang Qin could finish his words, he fell onto Bai Xiaoyan. Jiang Qin! Xian Yu was shocked. He's fine. It's just that his immortal energy was exhausted and he fainted from exhaustion. He'll be fine after resting for a while. Bai Xiaoyan carried Jiang Qin on her back and said, Let him go back to the 9th mountain to rest. Xian Yu, please bring him some good things to nourish him. No problem, we still have some in the 9th mountain. Xian Yu nodded quickly. I'll send someone to send some over later. Xian Yu said. White Immortal King, please take good care of him. The first mountain chieftain looked at Bai Xiaoyan. She was busy investigating the whereabouts of the Black Sect leader and the Black Cloud Sect. She could not do anything else. All right, then we'll return to the 9th mountain first. Bai Xiaoyan nodded and walked out of the main hall with Jiang Qin on her back. Xian Yu, Hua Fu, who was holding Hikari's hand, and Lil Ape, who was about to turn into a giant ape, followed behind her. 4 streams of light left the mountain almost at the same time. Looking at the empty main hall, the first mountain chieftain sighed. I didn't expect him to be able to use such a powerful barrier. He really defeated Zhou Tai. I almost made a move just now. The first mountain chieftain put her hands on her hips. Jiang Qin's character was usually unruly, but at critical moments, he was unexpected. It was indeed very similar to Wan Cheng. Me too, Xian Yu added. Jiang Qin is still the same as before. He always brings us surprises. In a room on the 9th mountain. This was Xian Yu's room. Usually, no one could enter except for Qing Mu. At this moment, this room had become Jiang Qin's recuperation room. Bai Xiaoyan wanted to go in to take care of him, but she was stopped by Xian Yu outside and could only be the doorkeeper. Xian Yu was responsible for taking care of Jiang Qin alone. She fetched water, gave him medicine, and wiped his body. She did all of these by herself. Occasionally, Wei Yu would come over to take care of Jiang Qin with her, but most of the time, she was alone. At this moment, Bai Xiaoyan was standing at the door. White Immortal King, please go get a basin of hot water. Pour this basin away. Xian Yu walked out of the room and handed the basin of water to Bai Xiaoyan. Although she called him White Immortal King, when she ordered him, it was as if she was ordering her disciple. Martial Ant, do you think Master will get better? Hikari followed behind Bai Xiaoyan like a follower. Don't worry, he will be fine. Bai Xiaoyan replied with a smile. If Jiang Qin's life was really in danger, the White Immortal King would probably turn back immediately. Then which one is Master's wife? Hikari raised her little face. You're just a 12 or 13-year-old girl. How would you know this? This question stumped Bai Xiaoyan. Why wouldn't I know? Hikari put her hands on her hips. Her appearance was somewhat similar to Xianyu. Then let me tell you. These people could be your master's wife. Bai Xiaoyun revealed a strange smile. As the eldest senior brother, he could see through Jiangchen very clearly. Chapter 1655. In the blink of an eye. Half a month had passed. While Jiangchen was recuperating, the first mountain master gathered the other 8 mountain masters again. This time, no one objected and no one mentioned what Jiangchen had done in Kunlun Mountain. The first mountain master also told them everything that he had found out. However, after Jiangchen had been unconscious for more than 10 days, an extremely powerful aura descended upon Kunlun Mountain. The appearance of this person caused the 9 mountain masters of Kunlun Mountain to appear at the same time. However, when they gathered at the entrance of the mountain, the aura disappeared. Only Bai Xiaoyun and Bai Fingyu could sense who it was. When this person entered the 9th mountain, the first person he met was Xianyu. What are you doing here? Xianyu frowned as she looked at the man in white robes in front of her. 9th mountain master, you look like Jiangchen's wife, the man said with a smile when he saw Xianyu holding a basin of water and carrying Jiangchen's dried clothes. You! Xianyu was furious, but she could not do anything. Don't worry, I'm just here to take a look. Just don't tell anyone about me. The man waved his hand and went into Xianyu's room. Looking at the man's back, Xianyu wanted to be angry, but she could not do anything. She was no match for this man, and he did not seem to have any hostility. The man stayed in her room for 2 to 3 days. One day, when it was dark, Jiangchen opened his eyes and woke up. When Jiangchen saw who was in front of him, he was shocked and quickly sat up. Master, why are you here? Haha, you used all your strength to fight and ended up in a state where your immortal power is almost depleted. Of course, I have to come and see what's going on. Bai Xianling smiled and took out a red elixir pill from her sleeve. She handed it to Jiangchen and said, Eat it and your body will recover. Are you trying to poison me? Jiangchen was alert. F***ck, if I wanted to kill you, I would have slapped you to death when you were unconscious. Bai Xianling cursed. Jiangchen obediently swallowed the pill. Master, have you found my mother? This was the first question that came to Jiangchen's mind when he saw him. Now, his mother's figure was still echoing in Jiangchen's mind. Even when he was unconscious, he would still dream of her. Ahem. Let's not talk about this for now. I want to ask you something. After I handed the divination pavilion over to you, have you not updated the rankings for a long time? Upon hearing Jiangchen's question, an embarrassed look appeared on Bai Xuanling's face. But she quickly changed the topic. I forgot. Jiangchen scratched his head. Although he said that he had forgotten, Jiangchen's mind was not on it at all. He had become a disciple of the divination pavilion with the intention of getting his hands on the sex resources. Now, not only did he have to bear the burden of the entire sex immortal jades, if he were to update the rankings, he would become a tool. Forget it. It doesn't matter. Who would have thought that Bai Xianling did not care at all? By the way, Master, I have a question for you. Do you know anything about the outer region? Do you know of a sect called the Black Sect? Jiangchen hurriedly asked as he remembered that Bai Xianling was one of the 3 immortal kings and should know more about the current situation in the immortal world. At the same time, he told Bai Xianling about everything that had happened recently. After all, he was Bai Xuanling's disciple. When his disciple was in trouble, he should rely on his master to solve it. I do know a little about the Black Sect. But it's useless for you to know about it now. I'll tell you about it when your strength increases. However, the immortal kings of those sects in the eastern region sure have the nerve to call themselves immortal kings. Aren't they afraid of being laughed at? Who would have thought that not only did Bai Xianling not explain herself, she even sneered. Ah? Jiangchen was confused by her words. Do you think it is so easy to become an immortal king? That Zhou something, strictly speaking, they have only touched the boundary of the immortal king realm. They are stronger than the ordinary immortal kings, but they are not immortal kings. They can be considered as immortal kings, but they are only at the peak of the immortal monarchs. That Qianhe sect can be considered as a sect that is barely passable. As for the other sects that you have met, they can only be considered as average in the eastern region. Bai Xianling sat cross-legged on the bed. She did not care that the mud under her shoes had dirted the white sheets. I see. This was out of Jiang Chen's expectation. With his current cultivation, he naturally could not perceive this situation. When I first heard what you said, I thought that the immortal world would be flooded with immortal kings after I left for a while. Bai Xianling could not help but laugh. That black sect, I will keep an eye out for you. Thank you, master. Jiang Chen cupped his hands and expressed his gratitude. You are welcome. It is just that I did not expect that you could reach the level 3 of the Heaven Immortal Realm in such a short time. Xiaoyan also told me that you have defeated a celestial prime. You are indeed the disciple of the white-robed Immortal King. You have courage. Bai Xianling gave Jiang Chen a thumbs up. By the way, have you found the whereabouts of my mother? Jiang Chen could not help but ask. It's a long story. Bai Xianling stopped smiling and said, Strictly speaking, I haven't found it yet. If I didn't sense that you were in danger, I wouldn't have come back. But since you're fine, I'll take my leave now. Don't! Jiang Chen quickly stopped her. The immortal world is far bigger than what you see now. What you have seen is just the tip of the iceberg. Bai Xianling waved her hand. After saying that, she turned into a wisp of white smoke and flew away. She did not give me anything to save my life? Jiang Chen's mouth twitched. Coming and going without a trace was the best way to describe Bai Xianling. Creak! Hearing Jiang Chen's shout, Xianyu pushed the door open. Seeing that the white-robed immortal king had left, Xianyu was about to ask Jiang Chen if he felt any discomfort after waking up when she saw the footprints and mud on the white bedsheet. Jiang Chen! Xianyu's expression stiffened as she shouted. It has nothing to do with me. I did not do it. Jiang Chen quickly patted the mud off the bedsheet and begged for mercy. With his current strength, he was no match for Xianyu. Go and wash my bedsheet. If you can't wash it, you can forget about living in the 9th mountain in the future. Xianyu pointed at Jiang Chen and said angrily. Also, what is your relationship with the white-robed immortal king? If you don't tell me, I will kick you out of the 9th mountain. I will explain it to you in the future. Jiang Chen quickly got off the bed. However, he had just woken up and his immortal force had not fully recovered. His legs gave way and he fell to the side of the bed. Chapter 1656. With this fall, Jiang Chen fell in front of Xianyu with his head facing upwards. His eyes could even see the scenery under Xianyu's white dress. White! His nose felt warm and 2 streams of hot air came out from his nostrils. Jiang Chen quickly wiped his nose. If not for the white dress blocking his view, he would have seen a scene that was not suitable for children. Jiang Chen, you are courting death! This time, Xianyu was completely enraged. Although she always knew that she was Jiang Chen's woman, she was indeed a pure woman. Even if she wanted to do that kind of thing with Jiang Chen, she would have to wait until she confirmed her relationship with Jiang Chen. But now, Jiang Chen was shamelessly lying under her dress. Xianyu covered her dress. She was furious and embarrassed. She raised her hand and a bright light shone in her hand. Then, she chopped down on Jiang Chen's head. Jiang Chen instantly felt that something was wrong. It was a pity that he was able to dodge it when he was at his peak. Now that he was weak and his immortal power had not fully recovered, he did not have the ability to fight back against Xianyu, who was an immortal monarch. I will spare your life this time. If you dare to do it again, I will dig out your eyeballs and tie you to a stone pillar in the prison of the 9th mountain. I will let you suffer from puddles of water and the bites of water snakes. Luckily, Xianyu reacted in time. She stopped her attack before it reached Jiang Chen. She snorted coldly, put her hands behind her back and turned around. She did not look at the man lying on the ground anymore. Hiss, what a vicious woman! Jiang Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. His originally handsome hairstyle was split in the middle by her attack. It was not ugly, but there was an inexplicable meaning to it. Remember my words. Don't think that I am joking with you. Xianyu snorted again. If not for the fact that Jiang Chen had not recovered from his injuries, she would have chased him out long ago. Okay, I'll remember it. Jiang Chen nodded in agreement. In his heart, however, he was thinking that if he could see it again, if he could see what was behind the clothes, even if he really entered the underground prison, so what? After all, he had lived for several lifetimes and had experienced more dangerous things than this. If a mere poisonous water snake could kill him, Jiang Chen would not be lying here today. Humph, what's your relationship with the white-robed immortal king? Why did he come here to see you? Seeing Jiang Chen agree, Mystic Moon's attitude softened a little. As far as she knew, she had never seen the white-robed immortal king interact with anyone. Even if he did, it shouldn't be Jiang Chen. After all, what happened to the 10,000 Mounts Immortal sect was caused by the joint efforts of 3 immortal kings. You want to know? Jiang Chen got up from the ground and sat on the bed. Of course. Mystic Moon replied softly. If you want to know, give me a kiss. Jiang Chen pointed to the side of his face and said with a smirk. Scram! Mystic Moon's face, which had just calmed down, instantly turned cold. She realized that it was a mistake for her to be nice to Jiang Chen. This thinking man only knew how to climb up the pole and did not know when to stop. Okay. Jiang Chen got up and walked out of the door, feeling wrong. Wait a minute, you'd better come back and lie down. During these 10 days when you were in a coma, the other 8 mountain lords have discussed your matter. But before that, you need to represent the Kunlun Immortal Mountain to participate in the sect meeting in the eastern part of the northern region. Seeing that Jiang Chen was about to leave, Mystic Moon hurriedly pulled him back. What sect meeting? Jiang Chen frowned and his expression became serious. It's a meeting held by all the sects in the eastern part of the northern region. The purpose is to determine which sect's new disciple has the highest cultivation and the strongest strength. This time, the Black Cloud sect will also participate. The other mountain lords have also discussed the countermeasure. They will also participate and find out the details of the Black Cloud sect before taking action. Mystic Moon sat in front of Jiang Chen and said, When? Jiang Chen asked. 3 days later. Originally, our Kunlun Immortal Mountain's Zhou Tai was going to participate. But unfortunately, you severely injured him. Now, only you can take his place. And with the strength you've displayed, the other mountain lords feel that you can achieve a good result. Mystic Moon moved closer to Jiang Chen. I'll participate. But with my current state, don't have too much hope for me. Jiang Chen waved his hand. He did not care about this at all. The 8th mountain. Zhou Tai had been recuperating. However, ever since he was severely injured by Jiang Chen, he had lost the ability to move. Every day, he could only be taken care of by the disciples of the 8th mountain. Otherwise, no one would be able to bear it if he peed and pooped on the bed. Master! Seeing the person who pushed the door open, Zhou Tai hurriedly propped himself up. As soon as he moved, a piercing pain came, causing him to grit his teeth and tremble all over. You just need to lie down. Yan Zhu walked over quickly. When he saw that the disciple he was most proud of was reduced to such a state, he was very angry. However, there was nothing he could do. When they fought, all the mountain lords saw it. It was normal for Zhou Tai to be defeated and injured because his skills were inferior. Master, I'm afraid I'm crippled. Zhou Tai's face was pale and he looked very wrong. Until now, he still could not understand how Jiang Chen, a mere 3rd-tier heaven immortal, could use such a powerful immortal technique. He did not even have a chance to fight back. Don't be afraid. The 8th mountain has many hidden treasures. Sooner or later, you will be cured. Yan Zhu held his hand tightly. What about the sect meeting in 3 days? Zhou Tai gritted his teeth. Originally, with his strength, he could achieve good results in the sect meeting. Then, his status in Kunlun Immortal Mountain would also rise. He might even become an elder of the 8th mountain. But now, it was all a dream. The mountain lords have unanimously decided that Jiang Chun will participate in the meeting on your behalf. It's also a good opportunity to let the elites of the other sects teach him a lesson. He's only a 3rd-tier heaven immortal. Facing those elites of the other sects, he will definitely be seriously injured. Yan Ju snorted coldly. This was also the reason why he tried his best to recommend Jiang Chun to represent Kunlun Immortal Mountain. He could not let Jiang Chun injure Zhou Tai and not bear any responsibility. He even had to help him deal with the sects in the outer region. As long as Jiang Chun was injured or killed in the sect meeting, Zhou Tai's revenge could be avenged. Okay. Zhou Tai immediately became excited when he heard this. This movement caused his blood to rush to his heart, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Pfft. Coincidentally, a mouthful of blood that had accumulated in Yang Ju's abdomen sprayed onto his face. F***ck your mother. Yang Ju's eyes were glazed as the blood flowed down his face. He could not help but curse. Chapter 1657. Yang Ju did not even dare to breathe. If he breathed, he would smell the disgusting stench of blood. However, even an immortal lord had to breathe. He stood stiffly on the spot. In the end, he could not help but take a deep breath. Wah! This breath made him hold his stomach and vomit. Master! Zhou Tai turned pale with fright. Ignoring the pain, he rolled off the bed and found a rag beside him. He pressed it on Yang Ju's face and wiped it with all his might. Bastard, if it weren't for the fact that you're injured, I would have punished you severely. Yang Ju's eyes were red. He was an immortal king, the master of the famous Kunlun Celestial Mountain's 8th mountain. How could he be treated like this? I'm sorry, master! Zhou Tai knelt on the ground and kowtowed. Stand up! Yang Ju sighed and waved his hand helplessly. 3 days later, Jiang Chun, who had consumed the medicine and elixirs sent by Xian Yu and Wei Yu, had almost recovered from his injuries. As evening approached, he, Bifeng Yu and the rest stood at the peak of the first mountain. Xian Yu purposely kept a certain distance from Jiang Chun. Let Jian Yun bring you this time. This is your first time participating in the sect assembly. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask him. The master of the first mountain looked at Jiang Chun with a worried gaze. I know. Jiang Chun smiled and held Hikari's small hand. He said softly, Master has to go out for a while. Stay here and listen to senior sister and martial uncle. Don't run around. Wait for me to come back and bring you a gift. You don't want me to go with you? Hearing this, Bai Xiaoyun frowned and stepped forward to ask. Eldest senior brother, you are an immortal king. If you go, it will be too conspicuous. Jiang Chun shook his head. Moreover, you have to stay here and protect Feng Yu and Hikari. With the Kunlun Celestial Mountain, what are you afraid of? Bai Xiaoyun did not understand. I'm afraid of the other mountain masters. Jiang Chun suddenly lowered his voice. Hearing this, Bai Xiaoyun understood. Jian Yun, don't forget what I asked you to do. The first mountain lord said to Jian Yun. Don't worry, mountain lord. I will protect Jiang Chun well, and I will also investigate the matter of the Black Cloud sect. Jian Yun cupped his hands towards her and respectfully replied. After the first mountain master nodded his head, Jian Yun and Jiang Chun turned into streams of light and dashed towards the mountain gate. In a town thousands of miles away from the Kunlun Immortal Mountain, many people from sects had already entered. They were all disciples from various sects in the eastern part of the northern region, and they had come here to participate in the sect meeting. It was said that the disciple who won first place would be able to obtain the comprehension left behind by a celestial king whose strength was above the 3 great celestial kings. From there, it would be able to help him break through his current cultivation and reach a higher level. However, no one knew whether this was the case or not. In the past, the disciples who won first place would not reveal the reward. The only thing they knew was that whoever won the reward would have a great improvement in their cultivation within a few years. The champion of the last sect meeting was Zhou Tai from the 8th mountain of the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. When he participated in the meeting, he was only at the first layer of the Immortal Realm. In less than 5 years, he had directly ascended from the first layer of the Immortal Realm to the Immortal Venerable Realm. Did you know that the one sent by the Kunlun Immortal Mountain this time is no longer Zhou Tai? That's impossible. Isn't that person the disciple with the highest cultivation in the Kunlun Immortal Mountain? Could it be that he is no longer qualified to participate after being promoted to an elder? According to what I heard, he was severely injured by their disciples and couldn't participate. Kunlun Immortal Mountain has sent another disciple. Who is it? That I don't know. In the town, many people were discussing. As the champion of the last sect meeting, Zhou Tai was naturally the focus of their discussion. Many people were also inquiring about the matter of the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. Gradually, this matter spread out. However, compared to the fact that Zhou Tai couldn't participate, they were more curious about who had severely injured him and who would be sent by the Kunlun Immortal Mountain to participate in the sect meeting. When the sky was completely dark, Jiang Chen and Jian Yun arrived. I've already booked an inn. Let's stay here today. Tomorrow, I'll bring you to familiarize yourself with the place. The meeting will begin in the afternoon. Jian Yun brought Jiang Chen into the town. Up to you. Jiang Chen shrugged. Following the crowd into the inn, Jian Yun revealed his identity as the elder of the first mountain of the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. The waiter quickly handed over the wooden plate with the room number. However, when he saw Jiang Chen, he was a little surprised. Elder Jian, why did the Kunlun Immortal Mountain bring a disciple with the cultivation of a celestial immortal this time? Little Fool scrutinized Jiang Chen. Even though he was just an immortal, he was still living here, and he came into contact with cultivators almost every day. As time passed, he could roughly discern a person's cultivation level with just a single look. As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes looked over. It should be known that the disciples sent by each sect to participate in the sect meeting were almost all the top talents of their respective sections. Their strength was also around the immortal realm. As one of the oldest and strongest sects in the eastern part of the northern region, Kunlun Immortal Mountain had more disciples with the cultivation of immortal realm than other sections. However, such a sect actually sent a disciple with the cultivation of a celestial immortal this time? Do your own thing. Jian Yun frowned slightly. Yes, Lord Jian Yun. The waiter realized that he might have said something wrong. He quickly covered his mouth and didn't dare to say anything else. He led Jiang Chen up the stairs. Many people's eyes followed Jiang Chen. They really couldn't understand why the Kunlun Immortal Mountain would send such a weak disciple. Among this group, there were a few people with gloomy eyes. They were all from the Black Cloud sect. One of them was an elder, and 3 of them were disciples. The 4 of them stared at Jiang Chen. If it weren't for the fact that there were many people from other sects here, they wouldn't hesitate to kill Jiang Chen here or leave with serious injuries so that they could reap the benefits from above. After entering the room, Jiang Chen directly lay on the bed, completely ignoring Jian Yun. Jiang Chen, you have to be careful this time. All the disciples who came to participate in the sect meeting are around the immortal realm. In your current state, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to face them. Jian Yun took out a white jade bottle from his storage ring and handed it to Jiang Chen. The master of the first mountain asked me to give this to you. What's this? Jiang Chen got up. After unplugging the stopper, he immediately smelled a fragrance. The spring flower pill that is unique to our first mountain. It can restore the cultivation in a very short time. Jian Yun shook his head and said proudly. The other 8 sects didn't have this kind of pill. Since you know my current situation, why did you ask me to participate in the sect meeting? Jiang Chen smiled and kept the white jade bottle. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.